Chapter 585. It was noon at Garashi's house. At the dining table, Garashi asked with a smile, "I heard that Buwaka-sama came yesterday. Did he ask you to plead for me to release Woodleaf Maru?" Red shook her head. "No, Buwaka-sama still hopes that Woodleaf Maru will be disciplined in the juvenile detention center for a while longer. It's not just the grandson who's troublesome for 3 generations. There's also the son." Mute covered her mouth and snickered. "Buwaka-sama wants us to introduce a few suitable girls to Asma." Red sighed. "He's 31 years old and still doesn't have a girlfriend. No wonder Buwaka-sama is so anxious." "It's my fault." Garashi sighed. "The dream world has developed many other uses over the years. For example, virtual idols are the culprit behind Asma's addiction." "I heard about it." Mute nodded. "His phenomenon seems to be called the two-spiked ape, right? Many people in the Sarutobi clan have been led astray by him." Garashi muttered. "I think Buwaka-sama might be beating around the bush to let me manage the virtual chaos." Red asked curiously, "Is it very chaotic?" Garashi nodded. "I just checked. The virtual singer that Asma likes is Killer Bee in disguise." Cough cough. The 2 girls suddenly coughed crazily. What? Killer Bee?" Garashi laughed. "You know that Killer Bee has always been keen on holding concerts, but very few people responded, so he came up with this idea." Mute's mouth twitched slightly. "I suddenly feel a little sorry for Asma." Red sighed. "Speaking of which, there aren't many of our old classmates who are married. Most of them are single." Mute counted with her fingers. "Asma, Kakashi, Lin, Guy, Shuemu?" "No, Shuemu seems to be getting married soon." Garashi nodded. "I made Xiao-chun wait for Shuemu for 8 years. Speaking of which, I'm being unreasonable." Suddenly Jingyin sighed. "There aren't many people in our generation who are married. However, Garashi, many of your disciples have gotten married." Red blinked. "Especially Ningji. I heard that he is actively responding to your policy to encourage childbirth. Maybe he will have a baby soon. Should we also have a baby?" "It's not that I don't want it." Garashi sighed and said seriously, "Your bodies are too weak to bear my essence." The 2 women immediately blushed and spat. "You call yourself a leader? How dare you say such things?" After feeling embarrassed, Red asked worriedly, "So we can only adopt children in the future?" "Don't worry," Garashi said with a smile. "When I go to Otsutsuki's home planet and catch a few Otsutsuki, I'll let you have the body of a god, so that you don't have to worry about having children." "How many?" Hearing Garashi's use of quantifiers, the 2 women were shocked. Did their husband regard Otsutsuki as a chicken? If he wanted to catch them, he would catch them. After the shock, they quickly dissuaded him. "It's too dangerous." "It's okay to not have children, but don't take risks." At this time, a rush of footsteps came from a distance. Garashi turned his head and saw 10 elders coming together. Each of their faces seemed to be written with the word serious. "What are you doing?" Reikage, who was the most impatient, said anxiously, "Today, there are 3 people with the surname Otsutsuki on the registration list. Sorry to disturb your rest." Minato first apologized and then said, "One of them showed a powerful strength to imprison a jonin in an instant during the registration. It can be seen that their surname is not accidental, but they really come from that clan." After that, everyone looked nervously at Garashi, waiting for his decision. Ordinary people don't know what Otsutsuki means, but how can they not know? Although they have been prepared to meet Otsutsuki, the sudden appearance of 3 Otsutsuki still caught them off guard. How could there be 3 of them? 3 years ago, a single Otsutsuki was enough to turn the world upside down. It was only when Shushi stepped in that he was able to suppress him. This time, however, there were 3 Otsutsuki. And this was just the one that appeared in front of them. What if there were others hiding in the dark waiting for an opportunity to sneak attack? Garashi calmly wiped his mouth with a tissue. "Don't worry, they can't make any big waves." With that, 2 projections appeared in front of everyone out of thin air, and in the projections were 3 albinos. Anoki's eyes lit up. "They are the 3 Otsutsuki? You've been monitoring them with the Skynet for a long time?" Raza was shocked. "Even Otsutsuki can't detect it?" Garashi laughed. "I've already said that Otsutsuki are not as terrible as you think. That's because you are more terrible than them." Everyone thought to themselves. Someone suddenly exclaimed, "Wait, are the 2 Otsutsuki with horns on their heads monitoring the other Otsutsuki without horns?" Hearing what he said, everyone found it strange. Could it be that these 3 Otsutsuki are not in the same group? Should we try to win over the one who is alone? Tell him that he is being watched by the other Otsutsuki? Let's not. Those Otsutsuki are very arrogant and most of them look down on us. Garashi knocked on the table and said in a deep voice, "My decision is to leave them alone and just treat them as ordinary people." Leave them alone? Empress Shomiai cried out. Won't it be too dangerous if we don't remove this kind of time bomb in advance? I let you see these videos just to tell you that everything is under my control. As I said just now, they can't make any big waves. I've caught 3 big fish on the first day. I'd like to see if there will be more big fish later on. Shushi said indifferently. I've caught 3 big fish on the first day. Looking at Garashi's calm demeanor, Shizune and Kurenai's eyes flashed with stars. The safety of the world and the fate of the world depends on a single thought. This is the true nature of a great hero. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone was relieved and said with a smile. It turns out that the leader has already made a decision. We worried too much. Those 3 Otsutsuki may not have put us in their eyes at all, but they don't know that the leader doesn't care about them at all. Haha, I'm looking forward to their ending now. Then we won't bother you anymore. Let's go. We'll pretend that we didn't know about this. When they came they had a lot on their minds, but when they left they were carefree. Naturally, everyone laughed cheerfully. However, after walking out of the door, A's brain twitched and suddenly remembered something. Wait, I propose to hold this meeting to pave the way for the election, right? If we meet those 3 Otsutsuki in the competition, won't it be an avalanche? Chapter 586. After a few days of brewing, the popularity of the tournament has reached its peak. After all, the standard of this tournament is too high. It's not an exaggeration to say that Jonin is worse than a dog. Kage level is everywhere. 7 people, Sanin 5 Kage. With so many big figures participating, this tournament will be unprecedentedly intense. The only pity is that the leader didn't participate. However, everyone also understood that if the leader participated, there would be no suspense at all. Moreover, with the leader acting as the referee and maintaining the venue, they don't have to worry about being affected by the aftermath of the battle. Finally, the day of the tournament arrived. In the grand arena there was a hubbub of voices. Niji, Sasuke, over here. In the sea of people, Naruto waved his arms and shouted. Niji looked to the side in confusion. There are 2 of us, shouldn't he come to our side? Sasuke nodded calmly. Don't worry about him, let's find a place to sit first. Even the grand arena that can accommodate 200,000 people is so crowded. Niji sighed. I remember that Woodleaf only had a few 100,000 people before. At this moment, everyone felt a blur in front of them. Like a folding chair being opened, the surrounding space suddenly magnified hundreds of times. Before everyone could scream in panic, Garashi's voice sounded in their ears. Everyone don't panic. I slightly expanded and strengthened the space of the grand arena. All participants can play to their heart's content without worrying about the aftermath of the battle destroying the venue. Hearing this, everyone quickly calmed down. As expected of Leader Sama, he's so thoughtful. Yes, whether it's us or the contestants, we don't have to worry. Although they didn't know how the leader did it, it didn't matter. In the crowd, Karen whispered, as expected of the opponent that even Lord Aizen values. This kind of space folding method, even you can't do it, right? Tonari nodded slightly. It's not difficult to break the space violently, but I can't do something as subtle as folding space. But, Karen looked at him curiously, but what? What surprised me the most is the trust that ordinary people have in him, this kind of trust and worship just like how we have for Lord Aizen. In another direction. Mamoshiki's eyes were full of surprise. It's rare for a mere inferior creature to do this. What seemed to be a brilliant and ingenious method in the eyes of Shiren was nothing more than this in his eyes. There were countless people in Otsutsuki's family who could do this. As for Garashi saying that no matter how much they fought, they would not exceed the capacity of the space, he snorted in disdain. Toshiba Shao said with a smile, a frog at the bottom of the well doesn't know the ocean. When I reveal a bit of my strength he will know how stupid this sentence is. Jinshur deeply agreed. You only need one look to make these idiots tremble in fear. While the 2 were evaluating Garashi, Garashi was also silently cursing in his heart. Are these 2 Otsutsuki fools? It was one thing for Du-Ren to be ignorant, but why were these 2 fellows so shallow as well? In fact, he was not folding space. Instead, he was overlapping the dream world with the real world. By manipulating the dream world he could affect the real world. Using the Western fantasy novels he had read in his previous life, the space they were in now was his domain, his divine kingdom. From the moment they entered this space, life and death no longer belonged to them. Garashi sighed in his heart. With such IQ, It's no wonder that they would be killed by the kidney-deficient versions of Naruto and Sasuke in the future parallel universe. After the space was expanded, the grand arena changed from 1 ring to 8 areas. I'm number 163. Niji looked at the light screen in the sky and whispered. 72. Sasuke said indifferently. Haha, I'm number 1. Naruto laughed wildly with his hands on his hips. It seems that I'm destined to take the title of world's number 1. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Your laughter makes me feel very uncomfortable. Only Sensei is allowed to give you special treatment? Naruto smiled proudly. I also asked Sensei to instill part of my memories in the parallel world. Sasuke frowned. What does this have to do with laughter? Naruto smiled. In that world I was imitating your laughter. I tried it and it was quite fun. Niji whispered on the side. More experience, more growth. Should I also find Sensei? Better not. Naruto and Sasuke said in unison. At this time a voice came from the broadcast. Number 1 Uzumaki Naruto, please come on stage as soon as possible. If you don't appear in time, it will be considered as a forfeit. I'm coming. Naruto rushed to the first area as if his butt was on fire. While running he didn't forget to remind him. Remember to come and watch my match. Got it? Niji said and looked up at the light screen. Who's his opponent? Hey, Uncle Hayashi? Sasuke was also interested. Hinata's father? Niji smiled maliciously. I wonder if Naruto has the courage to use his unique skill? Sasuke's eyes twitched. Are you talking about seduction jutsu or millennium death? On the ring, Naruto was dumbfounded. Hayashi-sama. Hayashi looked at him with an unfriendly face. You made me wait for you for so long. You really don't know etiquette. Naruto smiled twice. Isn't this showing that you're still strong despite your age? At this moment, a soft voice came from the side of the ring. Dad, you can do it? Hayashi's face slightly brightened. Just when he was feeling relieved, he heard the black-hearted girl shouting. And Naruto-kun, you have to do it too. You have 7 more characters than me. Hayashi's face darkened. He strode towards Naruto. Kid, die. Naruto didn't dare to fight back and kept retreating. Naturally, Hayashi couldn't be merciful. Especially when he heard the black-hearted girl's exclamation. He used all his strength. At this time, a mechanical reminder came from the broadcast. Uzumaki Naruto, please pay attention. You can dodge normally, but you'll be disqualified if you fight passively. Hearing the broadcast, Naruto's expression turned serious. Hayashi-sama, I won't go easy on you anymore. Hayashi's face darkened. What's our relationship? Do I need you to go easy on me? Naruto probed. Then I'll really fight back? Hayashi snorted. Go all out. Don't make me look down on you. If that's the case, then I'll offend you. Naruto's body suddenly erupted with an incomparably powerful aura. With the experience of Naruto in the parallel world, he even entered Sage mode. Senjutsu, Super Otama Rasengan. Seeing the hill-like meatball coming towards him, Hayashi subconsciously used Revolving Heaven. Then the Revolving Heaven instantly broke. Hayashi was blasted out like a cannonball and stuck on the invisible light wall. Seeing this, Naruto swallowed hard. Did I accidentally hit him too hard? Chapter 587. He wasn't worried about Hayashi's safety. With Sensei here, even if he died he could save him. What he was worried about was Hayashi-senpai's face. Hayashi-senpai had never liked him to begin with, and now that he was sent flying into the barrier with a single ball, Hayashi-senpai's mood was probably going to explode. Sure enough, after the winner was decided, Hayashi slid down from the barrier and looked at him coldly. You're quite decisive. Naruto felt wronged. You told me to go all out. At this time, Hinata ran over and added fuel to the fire. Dat, Naruto, are you okay? The veins on Hayashi's forehead bulged. He pointed to Naruto and asked, Does he look like he's not okay? Naruto screamed. Ouch. Sensei, your body is too hard. My wrist seems to be broken. Seeing his clumsy performance, Hayashi's face darkened. In the distance, Niji looked at Naruto's funny and ugly behavior and said disdainfully, What's there to be afraid of? Sasuke agreed. You're not manly at all. You're a disgrace to us. That's right. Niji nodded again and again. You won't hold back in your battle with Sakura, right? That's... Sakura? Sasuke reacted and looked up at the sky. It's her. If it was before he wouldn't care much. Isn't she just a woman who likes him? All living things are equal under the mighty hand. But after absorbing part of Sasuke's memory, he wasn't so stubborn when facing Sakura. Even if he didn't consider Sakura, he had to consider his future daughter. Thinking of this, Sasuke reservedly put his hands behind his back. Sasuke, don't hit women. Neji glanced at him contemptuously. After all this time, it turned out that the three of them were on the same side. At this moment, a voice came from the broadcast. Ring 4, number 23 Otsutsuki Tonari against number 24 Hyuga Hinata. Otsutsuki Tonari? Neji suddenly became serious. It's the one who fought on the day of the registration. With Sasuke's memory, Sasuke's expression was even more dignified. Is it the one on the moon? Why did he appear earlier than the parallel world? Is it because of the moon landing plan, or because of Hinata? Near the first ring, Naruto, who was joking around, suddenly widened his eyes. Wasn't this the bastard who reminded him that he might steal his wife? The two of them actually met in the arena. Danger. Hinata didn't know what happened and smiled sweetly. "Dat Naruto, I'm going on stage." Hayashi nodded slightly. "Don't be like me, getting eliminated in the first round. Let the Hyuga clan be proud." Without waiting for him to finish, Naruto tried to dissuade him. "Don't go, that person is obscene." Hayashi sneered. "Could it be even more despicable than your seduction technique?" "You know this too?" Naruto smiled embarrassedly. "It's all my fault. I was fooled by Jiraiya-sama." On the other side, after Shinran walked onto the stage, he remembered his master's instructions. "That's right, you have to use a mask to show your identity." Thinking of this, Sharon took out a mask and put it on his face. Seeing this, everyone was speechless. What's the use of wearing a mask after seeing what you look like? Shinran naturally didn't care about other people's thoughts. He looked at the opposite side calmly. But as soon as he said a word, Naruto shouted from the sidelines, "Hinata, blow his head off." Hinata smiled at Shinran with some embarrassment. "Sorry, Naruto is a little impulsive today." However, Shinran didn't care about her. Instead, he looked at Naruto. "Are you Shimizu Garashi's disciple?" Naruto frowned, getting more and more upset with this rude person who dared to call Sensei by his name. "So what?" Shinran nodded slightly. "Very well, you've successfully attracted my attention." Naruto was shocked. This development doesn't seem right. That guy didn't target Hinata, but me? At this time, Hinata remembered what Naruto said before and thought of something bad. "Obscene person, I won't let you harass Naruto." "Obscene? Harass?" Shinran frowned slightly. He rarely went down to the mortal world, so he thought what he said was taboo. Are the people below so conservative? Thinking of this, Shinran apologized. "If what I said offended you, please forgive me. As an apology, I will take your attack." Hinata didn't hesitate and attacked with the 8 trigrams. 8 trigrams, 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms. 128 palms. Like a tide, each palm was stronger than the previous one. When the last palm was hit, there was already the sound of wind and thunder in the palm wind. However, Hinata's heart was cold. Her palm force that was enough to split mountains and crush stones fell on the opponent, but it didn't make him shake. Even the chakra that hit his acupuncture point was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no reaction. Hinata suddenly understood that this person's strength may be above Naruto's. Shinran's gentle voice came from her ear. "Are you done? It's my turn." Without any flashy movements, Tonari simply flicked his finger and sent Hinata flying. Hinata spat out a large mouthful of blood and fainted directly. After the winner was determined, Naruto and Hayashi hurried to the stage to save Hinata. Although he knew that Hinata would be fine with Sensei, Naruto's anger couldn't be stopped. "You bastard, how could you use such a heavy hand?" If the difference in strength wasn't big, he wouldn't have been able to hold back in the battle. But the opponent's strength was obviously far better than Hinata, and it was a bit too much to use such a heavy hand. "Heavy hand? I just flicked it casually." Shinran shook his head slightly and said in the tone of Aizen-sama. "It's difficult to control the strength to step on an ant without crushing it." "You bastard." Naruto was so angry that he almost turned into a Super Jinchuriki. But Hayashi stopped him. "Naruto, defeat him in the ring for me." Although Hayashi didn't say what would happen after defeating the opponent, Naruto still read his subtext and couldn't help but shout excitedly. "I will definitely defeat him." Shinran said calmly. "You should first bless yourself and not be eliminated before meeting me." Naruto said tit for tat. "Don't lose to others because you're afraid." After some noise, the game continued. Not long after, it was Sasuke's turn. Neji looked at him mischievously. "Didn't you say that you don't hit women? What should we do next? Admit defeat?" Sasuke looked at him calmly. "Sensei once said, subdue the enemy without fighting. Wait, you're not? Without waiting for him to finish, an announcement came from the broadcast. Number 71 Haruno Sakura forfeited. Number 72 Uchiha Sasuke advanced. Niji looked at him with contempt. Scum. Chapter 588. After sending Hinata for treatment, Naruto returned to the arena, walked to Sasuke's side with heavy steps and asked, Sasuke, did kidney-deficient Uchiha's memory explain how I defeated that bastard? Kidney-deficient Uchiha. Sasuke's forehead was blue, but he didn't argue with him for the sake of Hinata's injury. I don't know. I didn't go to the moon in the parallel world. I see. Naruto sighed and heard Sasuke say, however, there is such a picture in his memory. The moon was cut open. Cut open the moon. Naruto was shocked. That guy is so powerful? The experience in the parallel world can only be used as a reference. Maybe he's not that strong. Sasuke said and changed the topic. But there's another possibility. He's like us, stronger than us in the parallel world. Naruto took a deep breath. No matter how strong he is, I will definitely defeat him. At this time, Niji walked over and said in a deep voice, look at the third ring. A man wearing the same mask as him appeared and, forget it. You'll know when you see it. Looking in the direction Niji pointed, a man wearing the same mask as Tonari stood on the ring. Compared with the mask, what was more eye-catching was the weapon in his hand, a shark-shaped broadsword, Sharkbone. I remember that the last owner of Sharkbone was Kirin's rebel ninja, Kisame, right? Niji asked in a low voice. Niji nodded. And his other identity is the remnants of the Akatsuki that caused chaos in the shinobi world 8 years ago. Naruto was surprised. Is that Tonari also a member of the Akatsuki? It's not necessarily the Akatsuki. Sasuke shook his head slightly. It may be another organization that incorporated the Akatsuki. Didn't Sensei say that? There are two huge forces hidden in the shinobi world. In short, let's watch the battle first. On the other side of the ring, Killer Bee gestured. I didn't expect you to dare to appear. Do you want to say goodbye to me? Kisame sighed. After so many years, you still don't know how to speak human language. Killer Bee was unhappy. You're a shark without any artistic cells. Insulting him, fine. But insulting his art, no. Killer Bee was too lazy to ask why he appeared. He directly entered the half-tailed beast mode and rushed toward Kisame like a bull. Flaming hot blade. Let's try my current power. Ghost Mermaid didn't dodge at all. Instead, he wielded his muscles and rushed up. After the two sides collided, Killer Bee, who was boosted by the power of a tailed beast, was sent flying and crashed heavily into the barrier. How is this possible? Killer Bee got up from the ground and shouted in disbelief. Of course, this injury was nothing for a Jinchuriki like him, but the shock in his heart was unparalleled. 8 years ago their strength was about the same. In the past 8 years he had never slacked off on his training. With the guidance of the leader, his strength had not improved by leaps and bounds, but it had grown steadily. What about the other party? In these 8 years of hiding, it was reasonable to say that he didn't even have the time to calm down and cultivate. But the result was the complete opposite. This scene also caused the crowd to seethe with excitement. As the Hachibi's Jinchuriki and Raikage's younger brother, Killer Bee was one of the favorites to win from the beginning of the competition. Naturally, many people paid attention to his battle. Who is this guy? Even Sir Killer Bee was suppressed by him. Kisame, a former member of the Akatsuki. Any random member has this kind of strength. No wonder he could set off such a big storm back then. Killer Bee calmed himself down and was ready for battle. Again. He stretched his right hand behind his back, but did not pull out all 7 swords. Instead, he only pulled out the most convenient one. Against opponents who were slightly weaker or on par with him, using the desolate egret cutter sword was nothing. But against an enemy who was stronger than him, if he dared to disperse his strength, that would be courting death. To deal with the strong, he naturally had to concentrate his strength on one point. Supersonic Thunder Escape Blade. Electric snakes swam on the blade, lightning flashed. Not only that, the tailed beast chakra in Killer Bee's body also wrapped around the blade. It seems that it is necessary to let you recognize the gap between us now. Kisame's arm muscles suddenly swelled, and he slashed at Killer Bee with all his strength. Shark Muscle, Extermination Slash. The red and blue blade collided violently with the shark muscle that opened its mouth. Like an earthquake, the ground beneath their feet instantly collapsed and sank. The stalemate only lasted for a short while. In the next moment, the blade in Killer Bee's hand shattered, and he was sent flying away together with it. After being sent flying to the magic screen again, Killer Bee vomited a mouthful of blood, but he didn't become dispirited. Instead, he looked at Ghost Mermaid with a pair of bright eyes and said, it's the mask that boosted your power. Kisame admitted generously, it seems that your eyesight hasn't deteriorated over time. The mission given by the leader was to become famous, so he surely wouldn't hide it. Killer Bee took a deep breath and said, is this the reason why you reappeared? Why do you think so? Kisame shrugged and said, it's just a small thing our leader made for us to prove our identities. Only a useless guy like me would use a mask to boost his power. A small thing? Killer Bee popped out his eyes, looking at Kisame, trying to figure out if he was lying or not. Sadly, except for a pair of cute little eyes, Kisame saw nothing. Hearing Kisame, the surrounding people burst into an uproar. A mask made for him gave him the power to suppress Killer Bee? How strong is that leader? Could he be bluffing? Damn it. Is it going to be chaotic again? Kisame laughed and said, what do you think? Do you want to admit defeat? It's just a mask. I have 8 tails. Killer Bee roared, transformed into his complete form, and threw a Baijidama at Kisame. Baijidama, this is a rare feast. Ghost Mermaid raised the machete, widely opened its mouth and swallowed the Baijidama. What? A Baijidama was? I'll let you have a taste of the power that Lord Aizen gave me. Kisame laughed and wielded his muscles. The soul power in the mask and the power of the truth-seeking ball converged into a golden beam of light, hacking towards the Hachibi with an unstoppable force. The power that simulated the Tensigen Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion, also known as the King's Flash. What is this? Even the Hachibi was frightened by this level of power. He subconsciously used the Baijidama, but the Baijidama melted as soon as it touched the golden light. Then the golden light bloomed, the space trembled, and the terrifying power of the explosion swallowed the Hachibi whole. Although the barrier had isolated the aftershocks, just looking at the world that was constantly turning upside down inside the barrier gave people a feeling of fear and trepidation. When the aftermath dissipated, what came into everyone's sight was the arena that had sunk hundreds of meters, and Killer Bee lying on the ground with blood all over his body. The Hachibi was killed in one hit. If it weren't for the enchantment barrier, I suspect that most of Woodleaf would have been in ruins. Kisame is really... how did he fall down? Hearing this exclamation, everyone subconsciously looked for Kisame, and finally found him on the edge of the arena. Kisame, who had nowhere to hide, was lying on the ground, crying. I should have tried the power of my skills in advance next time. Chapter 589. The area of each arena wasn't small, with a side length of 10 kilometers. Under normal circumstances, even a Baijidama wouldn't have much effect. It was precisely because of this consideration that Kisame was careless. Fortunately, the shark muscle that fell next to him stood up and put the skull on the hilt on his body. The chakra stored in the shark muscle was continuously transferred to Kisame's body, and the wound healed quickly. It didn't take long for Kisame to stand up again. After the winner was determined, AI appeared on the arena in a flash, carried Killer Bee, and looked at Kisame with gloomy eyes. You dare to come to the conference. I have to say, you are very brave. Kisame smiled indifferently. This is the world's first ninja conference, not the Alliance's first ninja conference. No one said that we are not allowed to participate, right? Or, you don't even have this kind of tolerance? AI snorted coldly. No need to provoke me, this world has no ship that can carry you remnants of the old era. Kisame carried the big sword on his shoulder and walked out. Remnants of the old era? Not for a long time. We are the Hollow who know the truth of the world after the dawn. Hollow? AI looked dignified. Sure enough, it is one of the 2 mysterious organizations mentioned by the leader. Is it finally coming to the surface? At this time, Darui came over. Reikage-sama, 2 more people wearing the same mask as him appeared. What? AI stared. Where are they? The 2nd and the 8th arena. Darui said, the one in the 2nd arena should be Kirin's rebel ninja Kurosawa, but his thunder sword was confiscated that year, so we can't be sure it's him. As for the 8th arena, it should be a little girl, but there is no one who can match her in the information. AI first looked at the 2nd arena, and the one who was facing the masked man was Kirin's Chojuro, who was also the owner of the thunder sword. This senpai, can you not always stare at me? Chojuro said shyly. He was not used to the hot eyes of the masked man. Kid, do you know who the previous owner of this sword was? Raiga asked fiercely. Yeah, he's called Kuroho Rea. Chojo Jurang touched his head and said shyly, I heard that he's a coward just like me. Leah was so angry that he almost fainted. Trembling, he asked, "You? What did you say? Did you know that he was the only one who survived the previous 7 legendary swordsmen?" "I know." Kojiroku nodded. "I heard that he survived because he was timid and knew how to escape. That's why everyone in the village called him Black Hole Runner." "Ah." Raiga let out a baboon-like roar. "You're pissing me off. Watch me kill you." He raised his hands high above his head to receive the thunder in the sky. Holding it in his hands, he threw it at Chojuro like a throwing spear. Lightning evasion, Raiga. Ninjutsu that used to require the help of a ninja sword was now easily used under the blessing of the mask. Chojuro quickly crosses his long saber in front of his chest. Although the thunder saber can absorb the thunder chakra in the thunder is too abundant. Only the part that escapes is enough to send him flying. So strong. After landing, Chojuro reluctantly raised his somewhat numb hands and looked at the opposite side in shock. "If it's you, Senpai, you can use the thunder saber to wash away the shame from Senpai." Raiga's eyes widened in anger. "Go to hell, lightning evasion, thunder dragon." The next moment, a giant dragon made of thunder poked its head out of the clouds and roared at Chojuro. Seeing this, A was not interested in watching anymore, but his expression was dignified. A7 legendary swordsman without a ninja sword can be strengthened to this extent. That mask, and the person who made that mask, just thinking about it is scary. It's not just the mask. Darui's voice was low. The person in the 8th arena doesn't seem to use the power of the mask. He's on par with Tsunade-sama with his own strength. Hearing this, A turned his gaze to the 8th arena. In the arena, the two sides were fighting in a rough and wild way. Tsunade raised her hand and stomped her feet. The earth and air trembled and whined. She even grabbed a piece of rock and threw it at the opponent. On the masked man's side, the 8 Vajra chains behind him flew wantonly and smashed the rock layer flying toward him. For a while, the roar in the arena was endless. Compared to the violent fighting style of the two, what was more shocking was their endurance. No matter how serious the injury was, the two healed in an instant and then fought again. Tonari watched from the sidelines and he wasn't surprised by this development. Although Karen's talent was very good and could be said to be the best except for him, the gap in combat experience still made her weaker than Tsunade. However, for medical ninjas, as long as the gap isn't too big, it will eventually evolve into a war of attrition. It seems that it won't end in a short time. A shook his head slightly and couldn't help but curse. In addition to incorporating the remnants of the Akatsuki, where did that organization find these people? Darui said in a deep voice. She and that Otsutsuki Tonari should be quite young, but they are both abnormally strong, which shows the vitality of that organization. Sure enough, it's just as the leader said, all kinds of monsters have come out. A said coldly, "I'd like to see what other fish can be caught in this tournament besides Tonari and Hollow." Although they were surprised by the revival of the Akatsuki, out of trust in the alliance and the leader, most people were just surprised and no longer cared. On the edge of the 5th ring, Hayashi said to Niji earnestly, "Niji, you are the only contestant left in our Hyuga clan. In any case, you must not be eliminated in the first round. If the Hyuga clan lost in the first round, how could he have the face to be called a giant with the Uchiha?" Niji was full of confidence. "I'm going for the championship. How can I be eliminated in the first round?" Hayashi nodded with relief. "Good boy, the honor of the Hyuga clan depends on you." Ring 5. Number 163 Niji Hyuga against number 164 Momoshiki Otsutsuki. Momoshiki Otsutsuki? Niji's eyes narrowed slightly. Since the guy named Otsutsuki Urashiki made a big fuss in the Jonin exam 3 years ago and declared the strength of Otsutsuki, many people changed their names to Otsutsuki to please the crowd. However, it's still very interesting to see such a name appear in the first ninja tournament, especially after witnessing the Battle of Tonari. On the other side, Momoshiki raised her eyebrows slightly. "Finally it's my turn? Oh, to step over an ant without crushing it? What's next? This kind of strength is very difficult to master." Jinsher reminded her from the side. Momoshiki nodded with satisfaction. "This sentence is good. When I kill that bastard, this sentence will be mine." Chapter 590. Stepping into the ring, Niji's heart skipped a beat when he saw his opponent's face. He had the same white eyes, pale skin, and horns on his head as the Otsutsuki from 3 years ago. Such obvious characteristics almost confirmed his identity. Pure ninjutsu is useless against him. Fortunately, I practice taijutsu. Niji rejoiced and asked, "Are you from Otsutsuki? You know about Otsutsuki?" Mamashiki was a little surprised, but she didn't care too much. She said casually, "Since you know, then kneel down and commit suicide." Commit suicide? Ningji was dumbfounded. Did he say something offensive? Why did she ask him to commit suicide? She actually used you, instead of honorifics. This is blasphemy against God. Jinshur explained kindly, outside the ring. Mamashiki nodded reservedly, indicating that he was right. Really? Niji suddenly used his right hand to measure their height and looked at Mamashiki's 10-centimeter heels. Is it really not because you're shorter than me even though you're wearing high heels? Mamashiki's anger was ignited instantly. Damn inferior creature, what did you say? Kensei. As if the mountains and rivers were given life, more than a dozen monsters with dragon heads and snake bodies instantly pounced on Niji from the ground. Niji jumped to the back, but the monsters nimbly caught up and entangled him behind. As expected of Otsutsuki. Niji sighed. He had only seen such a flexible earth attribute attack in Mizuki-senpai's senjutsu. But what about her? Manipulating these monsters was like instinct. It could be said that she could do it easily. Before he could sigh, Mamashiki waved her hand, and more than a dozen ice phoenix and lava giant apes surrounded him. Revolving heaven. Seeing that there was nowhere to hide, Niji quickly spun. Like an attacking spinning top, he directly tore apart the chakra creations that approached him. Spinning? Mamashiki sneered and appeared in front of Niji almost instantly. She kicked out and sent the spinning Niji flying. How is this possible? How could you break my Hyuga clan's absolute defense so easily? Outside the ring, Hayashi's eyes widened in disbelief. He knew how deep Niji's cultivation of Revolving Heaven was. Even Susanoo might not be able to break Revolving Heaven's defense. But what about her? She sent Niji flying with just one kick. So strong. Ningji spat out a large mouthful of blood as he flew backwards. Before he hit the border, he noticed a figure suddenly appear in front of him from the corner of his eye. With no time to think, Niji's body suddenly erupted with an incomparably powerful chakra. Ashiman Tonku. With his current cultivation, the seventh gate was the limit. He had no intention of holding back and opened the seventh door in one go. As if to vent the almost bloated power in his body, Niji roared and changed his speed in mid-air, accelerating toward Mamashiki like a cannonball. Mamashiki didn't expect that this inferior creature's speed would suddenly become so fast. Coupled with her little combat experience, she couldn't react for a while. Niji's head hit her chest and she immediately spat out blood. Niji was surprised that the opponent's ability to adapt was so poor, but he didn't have time to think about it. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he quickly adjusted his body and hugged Mamashiki from head to toe. His legs tightly wrapped around Mamashiki's neck, and he launched Revolving Heaven, dragging Mamashiki to the ground at the fastest speed. Boom. With a loud noise, the entire ring shook a few times. Jinshur's eyes widened outside the ring. He wasn't worried about Mamashiki's safety, but his heart trembled. To let Mamashiki suffer this kind of humiliation, the world is going to be destroyed. Sure enough, the dust in the sky was blown away by a gust of wind. Mamashiki stood up with disheveled hair and roared, "Damn bastards, I will destroy you, destroy this world." Before he could finish his words, Ningji kicked him in the face and sent him flying. Sure enough, he's the same as that Mamashiki from 3 years ago. Both of them aren't good at body techniques. Niji was overjoyed, but at the same time he remained vigilant. Although I can't be sure if he can transform like Mamashiki, I absolutely can't give him the chance to eat my eyes. Annoying body techniques. Mamashiki stood up from the rubble, roaring in his heart. If this was the ninjutsu system of these inferior creatures, why would he need to go through so much trouble? However, it's only a little troublesome for me. Go die. Niji roared. He displayed the advantage of his physique and the speed of the 8 inner hidden gates to the extreme, as if he were shuttling through space. But the moment he was about to hit Mamashiki, he suddenly stopped. His body froze in midair, and even his thoughts came to a standstill. When his thoughts returned to normal, a heart-wrenching pain surged through his entire body. Niji looked down and saw that Mamashiki's right hand had pierced into his chest, grabbing his heart. Was that time frozen? It's rare for you to have such insight, but unfortunately, Mamashiki coldly said, "Blasphemer, your fate has already been decided." After saying that, he crushed Niji's heart and threw it aside as if it was a worn-out shoe. Next it's your turn. Seeing my embarrassing scene is also blasphemy. Mamashiki turned around, ready to enjoy everyone's fear and anger. But except for a small number of people, most people's reactions were very calm. Was I not cruel enough? Thinking of this, Momoshiki casually threw a ball of flame on Niji's body, scattering his ashes. Outside the ring, Naruto said dryly, "Niji, you died so miserably." Sasuke glanced at him. "Can't you be a little more sincere?" Naruto said helplessly, "It's hard for me to get angry when I know that Niji won't die." Sasuke said disdainfully, "Then Hinata isn't dead yet? Why did you get angry then?" Naruto was speechless. In another direction, Tonari's expression was solemn. "Momoshiki Otsutsuki? Time freeze?" As expected of a member of that clan. Karen said worriedly, "Brother Tonari, you and him, I have nothing to do with him." Tonari shook his head slightly and looked at the ring with a faint smile. "Wait for a good show. Can a proud person like him accept the resurrection of the person he killed?" After the winner was determined, the ring barrier opened. Momoshiki strode out and was about to destroy the world, when he suddenly found that the surrounding space and time were in chaos. The time in the area where the inferior human was just now began to rewind. After a while, Niji fell from the void intact. Niji touched himself and looked at Sensei, who was flying towards him. He bowed his head and said, "Thank you, Sensei." Garashi nodded slightly. "You have lost. Go down." Seeing this, even Momoshiki couldn't remain calm. He looked at Garashi and said word by word, "Time rewind." Chapter 591. The reason why he couldn't remain calm, apart from the fact that very few people in Otsutsuki had this ability, was that this ability was very effective against him. Who told him to be just a child of a few decades? If it were those old guys who had lived for thousands of years, it wouldn't be a big deal to go back a few decades. But if he went back a few decades, he might be dead. However, he had overestimated Garashi. With Garashi's current strength, going back a few months was the limit. Going back a few decades? He couldn't do it even if he was beaten to death. Tao Shi subconsciously looked at Jin Shi outside the ring. Was he going to use Jin Shi as a shield? Hearing Tao Shi's question, Garashi smiled and said, "I've made a fool of myself." Tao Shi snorted, "A mere human can master this ability." However, without waiting for him to finish, Garashi smiled and said, "I still have something to do. Let's talk next time." With that, Garashi flew directly to his referee's seat. Tao Shi was petrified. What did he mean by making a fool of himself? So it was just a perfunctory greeting? What a disgrace. What a disgrace. Tao Shi's eyes were burning with flames as he muttered to himself. Ningji rubbed his chest. "Who do you think you are? You hit on others and they have to reply? Teacher is busy. It's already very polite of him to reply to you." Tao Shi was burning with anger. "Do you believe that I'll destroy the world?" Yes. Ningji sighed. "But before you destroy the world, can you get off the ring first? The others still have to compete." Tao Shi roared, "Bastard. I'm going to eat." At this moment, Jin Shi suddenly pounced on Tao Shi and pressed him to the ground. "Master Tao Shi, calm down." Tao Shi was really going crazy this time. "Bastard, get out of my body." Yes. Jin Shi hurriedly got up and dragged him away from the ring. "If you don't give me an explanation, I'll eat you right now." Looking at Jin Shi, Tao Shi cursed fiercely. Jin Shi hurriedly explained, "Just when you were showing off your power, I heard those inferior creatures mention a person. Otsutsuki Urushiki." Pusher? Tao Shi barely managed to calm down from his rage. Why did he come here? Could it be that he wants to complete the divine tree sacrifice before me? I don't know, but... Jin Shi continued, "I was very concerned after I heard it, so I stole their memories in a gentle way. It turned out that Pusher had been defeated by the man just now. He can actually defeat that guy Pusher." Tao Shi was a little surprised, but he didn't take it to heart. "However, I'm not comparable to a mere intermediate warrior. That's only natural. Someone as honorable as you can't be compared to Pusher." Jin Shi nodded repeatedly and then changed the topic. "But that man defeated Pusher in one blow after he transformed." What? Defeating the transformed Pusher in a single blow? Tao Shi's eyes widened. Even he would find it difficult to achieve this, right? Jin Shi nodded with some trepidation. "You'll know when you see it. I'll transfer the stolen memories to you." The next moment, Garashi's shocking blow appeared in Tao Shi's mind, making him feel as if he was there, and his right leg subconsciously trembled. After waking up, Tao Shi felt extremely ashamed. He was actually frightened by a human. In order to cover up his embarrassment, Tao Shi pretended to tremble his leg and cursed, "Martial arts again." He really didn't like people who practiced martial arts. Aside from the fact that martial arts could hurt them, It was also because people who practiced martial arts were like weeds in the field, occupying the nutrients that should have belonged to the rice seedlings. Jin Shi persuaded, Lord Tao Shi, the outside world is too dangerous. Let's go back to the mother planet? Tao Shi refused without thinking. Are you kidding me? If I were to be scared back to the mother planet by a group of aborigines, how can I establish myself in the clan in the future? Jin Shi anxiously said, but the enemy's strength is too strong and they also know about us. When the conference is over, that man may make a move on us. Humph, I admit that his current strength is slightly stronger than mine, but for me it's easy to surpass him. Tao Shi said proudly. Jin Shi asked, you mean chakra pill? Tao Shi nodded. That bastard's bloodline is still considered pure. As long as I refine him into a chakra pill and eat it, I can defeat that human. Jin Shi was still a little worried. But he won't be so easy to defeat, right? Moreover, those humans most likely won't watch him be refined by you. Tao Shi laughed. I have to thank them for holding the conference. I will defeat him in the ring and then eat him the moment the match is over. While they were discussing Tonari in the distance looked at the two of them speechlessly. In the records left by Himura's ancestor, it said that Otsutsuki's family was the most arrogant and proud group of people, and they couldn't communicate with them at all. Why did the two of them directly wither? Could it be that they have the same bloodline as me that was wandering outside? Karen sighed and said regretfully, I thought they would fight. If they don't fight, then we can only fight. Tonari's face was cold as he clenched his fists. This bastard dares to steal our limelight, unforgivable. Karen looked around and activated Kagura's eye. Sure enough, she found that most people were secretly paying attention to the two Otsutsuki, followed by her and Tonari. Since the alien made a scene in the Jonin exam 3 years ago, Otsutsuki's existence was no longer a secret. And the three of them who were confirmed to be Otsutsuki naturally received the most attention. Sama wants us to be famous. Anyone who dares to stop us from being in the limelight will be killed. Karen shouted, waving her small fists. Yes, kill them all. Tonari nodded heavily. As time passed, the first round of the tournament was over. Many dark horses had appeared in this round of the competition. For example, the Hollow, whose entire team had advanced, and the alien duo with horns on their heads. It was also the appearance of these people that caused many players to be eliminated in advance, such as the Hyuga clan who lost in the first round. Hayashi stood on the sidelines with an indifferent expression. There were more than 1,000 contestants. Under normal circumstances, any Jonin with a little bit of strength could enter the second round, but the Hyuga clan was eliminated in the first round. What kind of luck is this? Fugaku stood beside Kuroto and patted him on the shoulder. It's good to withdraw early. I'm a little regretful now. If only the Uchiha were to enter the finals, wouldn't the higher-ups be afraid? Hayashi laughed in his heart. With the leader's tolerance, would he be afraid of the Uchiha? If you want to show off, just say it. At this moment, a voice came from the broadcast. The second round of the tournament begins, Uchiha Itachi against Uchiha Sasuke. The smile on Fugaku's face froze. Hayashi clapped his hands and laughed. This match is good. One of them will definitely be eliminated. Now you don't have to worry so much. Chapter 592. Beside the ring, Sasuke's face turned black. He felt that he was being targeted. The first round was against his future wife, the second round was against his brother, and the third round was against his father. Itachi didn't think so much and just smiled slightly. Sasuke, take out the skills you learned from the leader and defeat me. Sasuke nodded with a complicated expression. I will. In Sasuke's memory there was a battle between their brothers which was also a battle of life and death. Fortunately, he did not need to experience that kind of pain in this world. All of this was brought to me by Sensei, so I must not let Sensei down. With this belief, Sasuke jumped into the ring. After the battle began, the two brothers almost simultaneously opened Susanoo mode. They understood each other very well, so there was naturally no need for them to test each other out. They immediately used their ultimate moves. Itachi opened the orange-red Gundam, and a giant flame sword appeared in his hand, slashing towards Sasuke with an unstoppable momentum. Knowing that Totsuka sword has its own sealing effect, Sasuke naturally wouldn't let it hit him. The purple Gundam wielded Kusanagi and collided violently with Totsuka sword. Boom! A loud bang resounded, and a layer of spatial ripples was stirred up at the center of the collision between the two swords. Then, a shockwave swept out in all directions, and the ground beneath their feet instantly sank by a great deal. However, the two of them didn't seem to care about the damage they caused to their surroundings. They were like two walking mountains constantly colliding with each other. Sasuke, you've grown a lot. Itachi sighed with emotion. His mediocre younger brother, who had only learned the Grand Fireball technique at the age of 7, was now on par with him or even suppressing him. Yes, I have indeed grown a lot. Sasuke also sighed with emotion. In order to open his eyes, he volunteered to experience everything about Big Sasuke. After waking up, he almost vomited in pain and disgust. The pain was due to deceit, betrayal, and slaughter. There was no light at all. Nausea was because of Sasuke's kidney deficiency. Just like in popular novels, other people's desire was first suppressed. But he was good, suppressing. This was too cruel. The only fortunate thing was that he wasn't wearing a hat. Otherwise, all the tragedies of life would have been taken by him. If that's the case, then let me see your limit. Itachi unleashed the power of his eyes to the maximum, and 2 streams of blood flowed down his cheeks. Sasuke suddenly felt like he was in a quagmire. Not only was his movement slowed down, but even his thinking slowed down. On the other hand, Itachi's saber swung several times faster than before. Time acceleration, time deceleration. Sasuke thought with his rusty brain. In the next moment, Itachi's Tatsuka sword slashed his Susanoo armor. Like a black hole, the Susanoo covering Sasuke's body was pulled toward Tatsuka sword current. Just when chakra was about to be sucked away and his body felt empty and weak, Sasuke coldly spat out 2 words. Rebound. The feeling of being stuck in a quagmire suddenly fell on Itachi's body. Not only that, even Sasuke's chakra-weakened state bounced back to Itachi. This is the Mangekyo ability he awakened after experiencing everything about Sasuke. Rebound, to return misfortune to Sasuke. Although he didn't remove his own weakness, after pulling Itachi to the same level, Sasuke was confident that he could defeat his opponent with Sasuke's rich experience. In the ring, not only were the 2 giants slow, but chakra was also weak, as if it could be extinguished at any time. They were like 2 old men on the verge of death. Before Itachi could adapt, he was pushed to the ground by Sasuke. Itachi rolled lazily and dodged Sasuke's second attack. Sasuke didn't give him a chance to get up and chased after him like a whack-a-mole. Itachi had no choice but to roll on the ground. Seeing this situation, everyone outside the ring was silent. The battles in the other rings were extremely fierce. Why was it so bad here? It was so slow, like an old man fighting. It didn't make people excited. Itachi tried to remove the time deceleration on his body, but every time he removed it, Sasuke immediately bounced it back. Itachi had no choice but to remove the time deceleration on Sasuke and then apply time acceleration on himself to speed up the refining of chakra. However, not long after he relaxed, the feeling of shackles from before returned to his body again. Itachi? It's useless. Lust is only temporary, depression is long-term. Sasuke sighed like a sage. Thanks to Sasuke's decadence, the second ability he awakened was to quickly enter a state of crouching. Under normal circumstances, the awakened soul portrayal eyes should be to avoid crouching, but Sasuke left a deep impression on him, making him subconsciously think that he couldn't avoid it. This ability was stupid to use alone, and it wouldn't be too strong even if it was used with rebound. But with his rich experience of kidney deficiency, it was powerful. At least, Itachi was beaten back by him without any power to fight back. After being knocked down by Sasuke again, Itachi had no choice but to surrender. I admit defeat. Hearing Itachi's surrender, Sasuke also breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking that he defeated Itachi by going easy in the parallel world, he couldn't help but feel excited. I used the ability I got from you to defeat Itachi. If you know, you'll be very happy. Outside the ring, Naruto's face was solemn. Sasuke's ability is too shameless. I have to be better at fighting in a weakened state than him to win. Neji shook his head slightly. Even if you're better at fighting in a weakened state than him, he can still rebound the disadvantage and bring you back to the same starting line again. Even if he loses the ability to fight, he can still drag you down with him. Naruto's eyes widened. Then how can we fight? You have to kill him in one hit and make him lose consciousness, Neji said and shook his head. But the problem is that one hit can only be done when there's a big gap between the 2 sides, and his ability is to forcefully pull the 2 sides to the same level. Naruto sighed. I was miserable in the parallel world. Why can't I increase my strength after experiencing his pain? Neji rubbed his chin. But I heard from Sasuke that you were miserable in the parallel world in the early stages, but in the later stages, you were completely like the protagonist in novels. How could that be? Naruto said indignantly. Have you ever seen the girl the protagonist likes throw herself at him? Yes, Midori. At this time the broadcast sounded. Ring 7, Uzumaki Naruto vs Hatake Kakashi. Kakashi, senpai? Naruto's eyes were strange. He called Kakashi senpai in the parallel world. Kakashi senpai seems to be quite weak. Niji patted him on the shoulder. It's a good opportunity to accumulate experience in this battle. Naruto rubbed his chin. Kakashi senpai in the parallel world used Millennium Kill on me. Should I take revenge? Chapter 593. Senpai's Disciple. Kakashi sighed in his heart. Once upon a time he also challenged Senpai. But now he has fallen to the point where he's on the same stage as Senpai's disciple, and he may not even be able to beat him. On the other side, Naruto directly entered Sage and QB mode. A golden flame enveloped him and even his hair stood up. Kakashi senpai, I heard that you used to be a genius like Senpai. In order to show my respect, I will not hold back and go all out. Looking at Naruto who entered QB Sage mode, Kakashi's mouth twitched wildly. No need. He's so serious it made him panic. I'm going. Naruto bent his legs slightly, stomped on the ground fiercely, and launched out like a cannonball. In Kakashi's eyes, Naruto was like teleporting. Even if he exerted his dojutsu to the limit, he could barely keep up with Naruto's movements. However, I've not only been watching Intimate Paradise these years, I've also grown. Raitun Chakra mode plus Hashiman 4 gates. After his speed skyrocketed, Kakashi finally barely dodged Naruto's attack. However, looking at the huge pit in the ground where he originally stood, Kakashi's eyes twitched wildly. What kind of hatred does this kid have with me? Why does it feel like he wants to kill me? Is it because of the evil bordered soil and he's angry with me? Kakashi wanted to use Kamui, but Naruto's movements were too fast, and he couldn't focus his sight. I can only use this move, Kamui, Air Shock. The space around Kakashi suddenly shattered, and the black space crack loomed, giving a feeling of extreme danger. Naruto sensed the danger and hurriedly jumped to the distance, temporarily undoing his hand movements, and prepared to use a long-range attack. Kakashi was panting, but after seeing Naruto's hand movements, his hair stood on end. As the son of Woodleaf White Fang who developed Millennium Kill and was famous for it, of course he knew what this action meant. Naruto wants to use Millennium Kill on him? Thinking that Rin was still watching below, Kakashi was angry. Naruto, you open the magic box first. Naruto didn't realize that he accidentally exposed himself and directly shot out 10 futon. Raisin Shuriken. He fired one and the 9 tails behind him each fired one. This overwhelming and terrifying attack made Kakashi's scalp tingle. His main body fled on the ground, while his lightning evasion shadow doppelganger took the opportunity to escape into the ground. He knew that Sage Mode's perception was very strong, so he naturally didn't dare to use Shadow Clone to attract attention. On the ground, each Raisin Shuriken was like hundreds of bombs exploding at the same time, forcing Kakashi to flee for his life. However, while running away he didn't forget to turn around and aim at Naruto with Kamui. Naruto dodged sideways, dodged the space distortion, and launched another 10 Raisin Shurikens. For a moment, the entire arena was filled with the sound of explosions. This firepower is too fierce. Kakashi was envious. If he had this amount of chakra, he wouldn't have to be so careful when using Kamui. At this moment, he suddenly realized that there was something wrong with one of the Raisin Shurikens. Is it Naruto's clone? He hasn't given up on that idea yet. Kakashi turned around and fled, exposing his back to Naruto. Sure enough, after discovering Kakashi's flaw, a Raisin Shuriken turned into Naruto's appearance and suddenly accelerated, rushing to Kakashi's back to launch a killing blow, Raisin Shuriken. Taking advantage of the moment when Naruto relaxed his vigilance, the lightning evasion shadow doppelganger hiding underground suddenly rushed out and poked his butt, Raisin Shuriken. Suddenly 2 screams resounded through the arena. The spectators in the other arenas subconsciously looked, and then their buttholes tightened. What kind of deep hatred did those two have? Too ruthless. On the arena, Naruto stuck out his butt and stared at Kakashi. Is it necessary to use Raisin Shuriken so ruthless? Kakashi grimaced in pain. Aren't you the same? Using Raisin Shuriken? Under the arena, Rin was in a dilemma. What if Kakashi asked her to treat him? Should she treat him or not? At the same time, in a barren world, Sishin rested his chin on his hand and sat lazily in his seat. Tell me what's the matter? Black Zetsu said flatteringly, Hiroshi-sama, those ninjas recently held the world's first ninja convention. Sishin tilted his head. What does this have to do with me? Hehe, I found 2 people at the convention. You'll be interested. Black Zetsu said as he opened the projection in his hand. The next moment, the images of Momoshiki and Kinshiki appeared in the air. Sishin sat up straight and narrowed his eyes. 2 Otsutsuki? Black Zetsu nodded again and again. The short one is called Otsutsuki Momoshiki, and the tall one is called Otsutsuki Kinshiki. Sishin's expression was uncertain. It's reasonable to say that there should be more than 10 years before the clan's investigation deadline. Why did they appear ahead of time? Seeing Sishin in deep thought, Black Zetsu carefully asked, Hiroshi-sama, what should we do? Sishin's fingers gently tapped on the armrest as he pondered. Their combination seems to be Otsutsuki Momoshiki, but looking at his face he's still very young. Most likely he's a new high-level warrior born in this millennium. Such a combination is enough to preside over a sacrifice on an ordinary planet. But on this planet, the danger is far from what a new kid can handle. He won't forget how he suffered a big loss from the 6 Paths reincarnation. Then he looked at Black Zetsu again. I remember you said that you took the opportunity to escape when Shimizu Garashi was sealing Urushi? Black Zetsu nodded again and again. Shimizu Garashi underestimated the power of Otsutsuki. I escaped when he was sealing Urushi with all his strength. Full strength? Have you seen his full strength? Sishin sneered. That guy's strength is not something you can estimate. I'm shallow and ignorant. Black Zetsu was secretly speechless. Even Hiroshi-sama was so afraid of him. If those 2 little guys think this is an ordinary planet and hit it head-on, the result won't be good. Sishin stood up and twisted his neck. This world is going to become lively. I'll go to the human world to relax. Black Zetsu was worried. But your body? Sishin waved his hand indifferently. This body is already at its limit. It's just right. Before I change my body, I'll use the last of my energy and bring them back to protect me. Black Zetsu was still worried. What if those 2 Otsutsuki conspired while you were changing your body? Sishin said. I haven't been removed from the clan yet. He wouldn't dare to do that. Chapter 594. The third day of the tournament. The original 8 rings have been merged into one, and there are only 4 contestants left, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, Otsutsuki Tonari and Otsutsuki Momoshiki. Such a result can be said to be beyond everyone's expectations. The previous favorites, whether it was the clan leader or the Omura Kage, were all eliminated, leaving only the 4 of them in the ring. Although Naruto and Sasuke performed well in the Jonin exam 3 years ago, they were still juniors. Most people didn't expect them to reach this point. As for Tonari and Momoshiki, everyone knew that they were strong. Rationally, they weren't surprised by such a result, but emotionally, they still couldn't accept 2 aliens showing off in the tournament. AI's face was dark. When his biggest opponent, Namikaze Minato, was defeated by his son, he gloated for a while. As a result, he was defeated by Uchiha Sasuke. However, he didn't care about the election now. Among the top 4, only 2 were from the Alliance and the other 2 were aliens. Although he knew Otsutsuki's strength, he was still very upset. Namikaze and Uchiha kids, don't lose to those 2 alien bastards. Hearing Raikage cheers, the surrounding crowd also became restless. Be sure to win, let them see the power of ninjas. Don't let these foreigners look down on us. Naruto and Sasuke were nervous. This tournament was not just a simple battle between ninjas, but a collision between 2 planets. Bearing the honor of a world, they couldn't afford to fail. Listening to the voices around them, Tonari and Momoshiki didn't react. For Tonari, the more arrogant these people were, the better the effect of trampling on them. In Momoshiki's opinion, what's the point of caring about a group of noisy ants? Garashi on the referee's table shook his head slightly. He wasn't optimistic about Naruto and Sasuke. Although both of them were strengthened by him, there was still a certain gap between them and Otsutsuki. Of course, it's not impossible to defeat Tonari and Momoshiki. He just needs to call Rikudo to help them. However, he didn't intend to do that. On the one hand, Naruto and Sasuke were going too smoothly. It's good to let them suffer a little. Maybe they can take this opportunity to break through themselves. On the other hand, the greater the disappointment, the greater the hope. With this in mind, Garashi announced, Momoshiki Otsutsuki vs Uzumaki Naruto. After the formation diagram was revealed, the crowd was in an uproar again. The more optimistic ones felt that they could keep both aliens out of the semifinals, while the more pessimistic ones were worried about what would happen if both of them lost. Naruto was also in a dilemma. He wanted to continue the unfinished battle with Sasuke 3 years ago in the finals, but he was thinking about his future father-in-law's request. Sigh, if only I could fight Tonari Otsutsuki. Naruto sighed. Hearing Naruto's words, Momoshi couldn't help but look gloomy. Although he didn't care about the opinions of ordinary people, he couldn't be compared to that bastard. Fox, do you want to die too? Naruto sighed. Don't you have anything new to say? What was there to be afraid of? Didn't you kill Ningji 2 days ago? Taosher cursed in his heart. It was all because of that bastard Shimizu Garashi that his threats had no effect. Then you can die once. Bansho Tenshin. Naruto was dragged forward by an invisible gravitational force, but he didn't resist. Instead, he raised the Okodama Rasengan and smashed it on top of Momoshiki's head. Momoshiki smiled contemptuously and raised his right hand. The Rinnegan in the palm of his hand opened slightly, like a bloody mouth, absorbing all the Okodama Rasengan. Stupid, chakra is just food for us. I know, so I mixed something in the food. Momoshiki's smile froze, and his body showed signs of petrification. Naruto knew that petrification wouldn't affect him for long, so he took this opportunity to attack. His physique wasn't weak, and in Sengoku mode, his strength was strengthened to the extreme. A fist strong enough to break a mountain fell on Momoshiki's face. When Momoshiki got rid of the control, his head was swollen like a pig's head. I punched you more than 200 times and you're still okay? You're too thick-skinned. Naruto was indeed shocked. Ordinary people's brains would explode if they were punched by him, but this guy was still alive. Damn it, I'm going to kill your whole family. Momoshiki roared incoherently. You mixed that disgusting and filthy thing in the food. Hey, speak clearly. I just added some natural energy and chakra. Don't make it sound like I added shit. Momoshiki was angry, and he used the Rinnegan in the palm of his left hand to absorb the Rasengan. High Emperor Spiritual Sage. Naruto was no stranger to this move. In the previous 2 days of fighting, Momoshiki defeated the enemy many times with the enemy's ability. Naturally, Naruto wouldn't give the opponent a chance to kill him. He quickly jumped away to dodge and then rushed to the enemy. I'll let you experience the same way as that Byakugan. Momoshiki's face was swollen and he spat out a few words. Time freeze. The next moment the world seemed to become black and white. Naruto's running movement froze in midair, looking ridiculous. Momoshiki gently stepped forward and took out his hand. Then Naruto in front of him turned into smoke. This is a clone? Momoshiki was stunned and time returned to normal. Naruto, who was lying in ambush under the ground, took the opportunity to jump out and stabbed Momoshiki's but with Senjutsu Futon Spiral Millennium Kill. Momoshiki's face turned from white to red to purple, and then he let out an extremely shrill scream, and his whole body jumped straight into the sky like a rocket. Naruto was triumphant. Humph, why do you think I used this move on Kakashi-sama before? Isn't it for the feeling? It's a pity that this move was originally prepared for that bastard Otsutsuki Tonari. This move wasn't just a bad taste, it was extremely lethal. He had punched Momoshiki's face more than 200 times before, and it only made Momoshiki's face swollen. But this part, it's bleeding. Tonari's back was a little cold outside the ring. The outside world was too dangerous. Fortunately, Momoshiki helped him take the blame. At the same time, he looked at Sasuke with vigilant eyes. This guy and Uzumaki Naruto have a close relationship. Will he use this move later? Sasuke's face was dark. Of course, he understood what Tonari's eyes meant. Humph. I won't use such a dirty trick. Karen looked at him vigilantly. Your Mangekyo ability is obviously dirty. Seeing Karen's attitude in Sasuke's memory, Sasuke inexplicably felt like someone was putting a hat on his head. Momoshiki fell from the sky, her posture was very indecent, and her eyes were almost bleeding. I must kill you? No, I will use it on you 1,000 times. It still won't work, it's too dirty. I want to destroy this world. Chapter 595. Facing the furious Momoshiki, Naruto was very calm. Although he was usually heartless, his fighting IQ was praised by his sensei. He knew that his biggest advantage was chakra, but this advantage was not enough in the face of Otsutsuki who fed on chakra. Therefore, he must take advantage of the opponent's arrogance and irritability. Now he was halfway there. Naruto seriously analyzed. The defense of that part is much weaker than the defense of the face. Are you worried that it's too hard to excrete? Momoshiki was irritated again. God doesn't need to excrete. Naruto looked disgusted. You actually digested the shit in your stomach, so disgusting. Momoshiki was going crazy. Regardless of the bleeding wound, He shot out a series of energy balls from the palm of his hand. Naruto was about to dodge but found that the flow of time and space stagnated again. Then he was directly turned into flying ash by those energy balls. No, it's a clone again. Momoshiki stared, and time and space stagnated for a second before resuming its flow again. Naruto broke out of the ground again and attacked Momoshiki. This time Momoshiki was finally prepared and didn't let him succeed. However, when he saw the trajectory of Naruto's attack, Momoshiki was furious. That bastard was going for his delicate butt again. Does this guy only know how to go for his face and lower body? It's too dark and obscene. Also, this guy actually predicted his ability twice in a row. You saw through my time freeze? Time freeze for 1 second, interval of 5 seconds, am I right? Niji told me the first one and I just concluded the second one. So what if I know? Of course I can defeat you if I know. Having said that, Naruto was still a little anxious. Momoshiki's stooped body was obviously straightened a little. It won't be long before the only damage he left to Momoshiki would be psychological trauma. In a hurry, he didn't care about saving Senjutsu Chakra. Senjutsu, Super Jade Spiral Multiple Chain Ball. Hundreds of shadow clones held the mountain-like chakra ball at the same time and jumped towards Momoshiki. Even Tao Shi did not dare to underestimate this level of energy. However, Otsutsuki's pride did not allow him to bow down to such a despicable person. Therefore he chose to confront the waves directly. The Rinnegan on Momoshiki's palm spat out more than a dozen purple-black bubbles. These bubbles expanded rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into chakra balls with a diameter of hundreds of meters. The chakra balls on both sides collided violently, causing light to distort and space to shatter. Terrifying energy storms wreaked havoc in the arena, causing every corner of the arena to be filled with endless light and heat. Seeing this, everyone was a little frightened. The arena was vast to begin with, and now it was 8 times larger than before. Even so, they still felt like they couldn't go all out. It's too strong. It's simply a battle of legends. Assuming that a normal Jonin's battle power is 5, these two's battle power is at least 10,000. Jean Shi, on the other hand, was terrified. Master Peach Shi and Little Fox are fighting so fiercely, yet they still can't break the enchantment of the arena. That Qingshui Shushi is as strong as a monster. Could he be from a battle race in the universe? After the aftermath dissipated, the arena directly sank hundreds of meters, like a large basin. Momoshiki, whose clothes had become tattered, stood in the center of the basin, looking fiercely for traces of Naruto. Suddenly, Naruto turned over the mound, held the Rasengan, and ran over from a distance. Momoshiki dodged the attack and kicked Naruto's lower abdomen. With a bang, Naruto exploded into a cloud of smoke. I knew you were going to use this trick. Momoshiki grinned, and the surrounding space and time stagnated again. This time, let's destroy the earth together. Momoshiki laughed, and a huge sun-like energy ball condensed in the palm of his left hand and threw it to the ground. Although he couldn't determine where the kid was hiding underground, he could directly overturn the table. Boom! Another devastating disaster swept across the earth. In order to ensure that Naruto couldn't avoid the attack even if he hid thousands of meters underground, he put in a lot of effort this time. The chakra that was compressed to the extreme exploded, as if it was splitting the heaven and earth apart. The endless torrent of energy swallowed everything around it, and the thick earth quickly melted under the erosion of the energy ball, like snow on a hot spring. Soon the storm calmed down. Momoshiki was suspended in the air, and under his feet was a bottomless abyss. There was no place to stand. He gasped lightly and used time freeze and big moves several times in a row. Even he felt a little tired, but he was very happy. Ah, I finally killed that fox. Momoshiki laughed and suddenly froze. Why was there a wisp of smoke in front of him? Suddenly, a horrifying thought came to him. Wait, what I hit before wasn't a clone but the real body. While he was stunned, the smoke turned into Naruto, and with all his strength he punched Momoshiki's head with the power of Fairy Fox. Momoshiki's head immediately shrank into his body, like a turtle with its head blown off. After this punch, Naruto's face was pale, and he gasped for breath, and his suspended body slowly fell into the abyss. He used his real body to take Momoshiki's heavy kick, and he endured the injuries from the aftermath and stayed in place. His body was already close to its limit. Seeing this, everyone who had just recovered from the shock brought by Momoshiki's destruction was surprised and happy. Great, we've won. Is Naruto okay? Quickly open the barrier and save him. But at this moment the turtle floating in the air suddenly moved, put its hands on its horns and pulled its head out like a radish. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart was cold. You won't die like this? What kind of monster is this guy? Momoshiki looked at Naruto indifferently, and with a light tap of his fingertips, more than a dozen beams instantly penetrated Naruto's body. When he was about to continue attacking, Garashi announced the outcome. The barrier opened and Naruto, whose body was constantly bleeding, was pulled into the sky by an invisible force. For Garashi's behavior, Momoshiki was naturally very upset. He hasn't admitted, however, Garashi just snapped his fingers. In the next moment, Naruto and the destroyed field instantly returned to their previous state. Seeing this, Momoshiki had to leave bitterly. You win. Although Momoshiki was defeated, everyone wasn't very happy. In any case, the alliance lost this battle. Of course, they didn't mean to blame Naruto. Everyone could see that Naruto had tried his best. It can even be said that if it wasn't for the gap in overall strength between the two sides, Naruto would have won. Everyone sighed and looked at Sasuke eagerly. Sasuke, it's up to you. Chapter 596. Sasuke could naturally feel everyone's expectations, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Sure enough, it's up to me to save the world. Naruto was a little discouraged at first, but he quickly cheered up and walked to Sasuke's side. Help me defeat that guy. Sasuke nodded reservedly. Leave it to me. On the other side, Karen asked worriedly, Brother Tonari, are you sure you can deal with his shameless ability? Tonari smiled confidently. His trick may be unsolvable to others, but it happens to be restrained by me. Looking at the two whispering to each other, Sasuke felt uncomfortable. After all, Big Sasuke's daughter was almost a replica of Karen. Thinking of this, Sasuke jumped into the ring and said coldly, Don't dawdle, get up and die. Did this guy eat explosive tag? His temper is so bad? Tonari was speechless. He could naturally feel the undisguised malice of the other party. Naruto thought that Sasuke treated Tonari this way because of him, and couldn't help but feel moved. Good brother for life. Li Rin flew onto the stage and recalled the god's sayings. Don't spout nonsense so easily. That will only reveal your weakness. Sasuke frowned and said unhappily, You can make people angry with just a few words. In this respect, you are indeed very powerful. Tonari shook his head slightly. Such narrow-mindedness will only make me look down on you. Narrow-mindedness? I hate this word. Sasuke snorted coldly and took out a handful of needles from the tool bag and shot them out like a fairy scattering flowers. These needles were not shot at Tonari but at every corner of the ring. Tonari asked with interest, Flying Thunder God Jutsu? The person who developed this jutsu is really powerful to control the power of space with a mortal body. Sasuke stopped talking and suddenly appeared behind Tonari like a ghost. Chidori flashing with blue light slashed down fiercely. Although Sasuke stabbed at his back because of Naruto's precedent, Tonari naturally didn't dare to let Sasuke stand behind him. He decisively turned around and bounced him away with repulsion. This is the ability of Tenseigan? It seems similar to Rinnegan. Although Big Sasuke didn't land on the moon, he knew some information from Naruto afterward. You know about Tenseigan? Tonari was a little surprised. Don't think I don't know what happened to you on the moon. Sasuke used his words to influence the other party while learning Naruto's clone body. The moon. Sure enough, the Terminator fell into the trap. His state of mind was in turmoil. Sasuke and the 9 clones lying in ambush underground took the opportunity to attack, teleporting to all directions around Tonari with Flying Thunder God Jutsu and assassinating him at the same time. However, Sherman's reaction was faster than they had imagined. Born from Otsutsuki's taijutsu, it hit Sasuke and his 8 clones like flowing water, instantly sending them flying out. After a little test, Sasuke was shocked. This guy's taijutsu is still above Momoshiki. Although Tao sure lacked combat experience, his physical skills were not weak. However, Sasuke wasn't surprised that sacrificing body jutsu was stronger than Momoshiki. With the pride of Momoshiki, Otsutsuki Momoshiki wouldn't look down on the barbaric and rude taijutsu. But what about Sharon? Although there was a kind of arrogance in his bones, his attitude was still quite proper. Tonari's eyes were slightly cold, and a layer of green chakra emerged and enveloped him. I almost fell into your trap. Sasuke frowned and he felt danger from the other party. Green chakra? Wait, truth-seeking ball? Although it was somewhat different from the black truth-seeking ball in Sasuke's memory, its essence was very similar. Now that things have come to this, I can't be bothered to ask where you found out about these things. Destroy. Tonari shook his head slightly, and the two green truth-seeking balls behind him flew out, spinning, and blasted out an extremely powerful tornado. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. Sasuke hurriedly dodged with Flying Thunder God, and Tonari spun around in a circle. This tornado was like a beam of light, destroying all the needles on the arena. In a crisis, Sasuke couldn't care so much and quickly entered a weakened state, and then reflected this state on Tonari. Tonari's power suddenly dissipated, and the Tensigen mode seemed to be extinguished, and the green chakra gradually disappeared. Tonari raised his head with difficulty. Your pupil power seems to have exceeded the limit of Manjikyu Sharingan. Ordinary Manjikyu abilities can't work on my Tensigen. Sasuke panted, holding his waist and kidney, looking like he had kidney deficiency, but he still smiled and said, "Of course I'm special." Special? Tonari couldn't help but recall. Back then Lord Aizen also said that he was the most special one. Thinking of this, Tonari smiled and said, "Although you have worked very hard, but sorry, I have a reason that I absolutely can't fail." The next moment, a huge human-shaped stone statue suddenly appeared on the arena, exuding an ancient and powerful aura. Seeing this, everyone was a little surprised. What is this? Summoning technique? But this stone statue doesn't look like it's alive. Look, the stone statue is moving. Tonari smiled and said, "Can your rebound also work on inanimate objects?" Sasuke frowned. Puppeteer jutsu would weaken the puppeteer, and the puppet's movements would also be affected, but the opponent's stone statue didn't seem to have such a worry. A psychic beast that doesn't have life but can act according to his will? In fact, letting the psychic beast participate in the battle was his biggest trump card. His own psychic beast wouldn't be affected, but the opponent's psychic beast would be weakened, not to mention that his psychic beast was one of the strongest in the ninja world. However, the current situation seemed to be a little out of control. Now, I can only hope that all snakes can do something. Sasuke bit his finger, formed a seal and pressed it on the ground. The next moment, a giant snake appeared on the arena. All snakes woke up from their sleep. When they saw Sasuke, their originally lazy and sleepy eyes instantly became disdainful. "Why do you look like a sickly ghost?" They had suffered a lot in this space-time and were far less arrogant than in the parallel world, but when they saw Sasuke like this, they couldn't help but mock him. Sasuke snorted coldly. "Don't talk nonsense. Can you deal with that guy?" All snakes raised their heads and looked at the stone statue, their gazes turning sharp. "It's just a clay puppet, not worth mentioning." After saying that, all snakes displayed agility that didn't match their huge bodies. They coiled around the stone statue and squeezed, crushing it into pieces. All snakes shook their heads. "I." Before they finished their words, the shattered stone statue instantly healed. It hugged all snakes' tails and slammed them onto the ground like a whip. All snakes foamed at the mouth, announcing that they were defeated. Sasuke's eyelids twitched. Wasn't all snakes a little too fast? He didn't even have time to react. Tonari smiled. "Do you still want to fight?" Looking at the giant stone statue, Sasuke said with grief and indignation, "You win this time." Chapter 597. Outside the arena, there were cries everywhere. This isn't real. It's all snakes' fault. They're too bad." The world's first ninja tournament, which was known as the gathering of all the world's geniuses, turned out to be two aliens who entered the finals. This was simply a disgrace. It was the darkest day since the establishment of the Alliance. Many members of the Alliance who had a strong sense of honor began to bawl and curse. Garashi shook his head slightly. If it weren't for his restraint, their reaction might be even more intense than some European gentleman who lost football in his previous life. Tonari didn't care about everyone's reaction. He just looked at Momoshiki calmly. "It's your turn." Momoshiki licked his lips. "At least I didn't lose Otsutsuki's face. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to meet you in the competition at first." Momoshiki's gaze was slightly serious. "Do you really want to fight with me in the arena?" Momoshiki floated towards the arena. "You should feel honored. I reluctantly let these monkeys watch for you." He didn't suppress his voice. It could even be said that he deliberately raised his voice. The crowd, who was already angry, exploded like a barrel of gunpowder after hearing his words. "What kind of excellent breed do you think you are? An alien monster that even breeds ugly. An idiot without eyebrows. A shorty whose butt was poked by others." Momoshiki ignored the words in front, but when he heard the last sentence, his defense was broken. "Bastard, I'll kill you when I get out." Before his voice fell, he was sent flying by a kick from Chenrin. Momoshiki hovered in midair and looked over fiercely. You actually sneak attacked me. Tonari's expression was calm. You talk too much nonsense. Bastard who makes people angry. Momoshiki snorted coldly and used gravity to control a mountain peak to throw at Tonari. Li Rin also gave tit for tat. He pulled out a small decorative mountain from the stage and threw it at Tao Shi. The two mountains collided in the air and exploded into countless pieces of rock, falling to the ground like a meteor shower. However, neither of them cared about these meteors. Momoshiki raised his hands and shot countless light waves at Tonari. Tonari quickly entered the Tensigen mode. The 9 truth-seeking balls behind him formed a green halo, and countless light balls flew out of the halo and shot to the opposite side. Boom, boom, boom. Spots of light constantly blossomed in the area between the two of them, and the sound of explosions rang out incessantly. Occasionally there would be some waves that managed to break through the defense line and fly in front of the two of them. However, they would be easily swatted away by the two of them or simply ignored. In the midst of this intense battle, the huge stone statue left behind from the previous battle suddenly moved, waving its hand to grab the peach form. With a light tap of his finger, dragons and snakes formed from rocks, phoenixes formed from ice crystals, and giant apes formed from lava all attacked the stone statue. That's about it. Tao Shi nodded lightly. Just as he was about to turn his attention back to Chenren, the 3 giant beasts suddenly wailed. He turned around and saw the 3 giant beasts being devoured by the stone statues. There's something strange about this statue. Tao Shi narrowed his eyes. He had always been the one to absorb other people's chakra. Since when was it someone else's turn to devour his chakra? Momoshiki looked up and asked, Are these the remains of the deceased Otsutsuki? Tongren nodded. This is a gift left to us by ancestor Himura. Interesting, then I'll do the summoning too. Tao Shi said as he opened the door to Yomi no Bai and pulled Jin Shi, who was watching the battle outside, in. Everyone outside the arena was stunned when they saw this. There's such a thing? What kind of psychic is this? He's clearly using spatial ninjutsu to pull people in. Summoning should also be a type of space ninjutsu, right? What about Otsutsuki Kinjin style? He can't be a spiritual beast, right? The corner of Li Ren's mouth twitched slightly. He's your spiritual beast? Without waiting for Tao Shi to answer, Jin Shi took the initiative to say, I am Lord Tao Shi's loyal dog. Henren took a deep breath. You are breaking the rules. Tao Shi said calmly, if you still have spiritual beasts, you can continue to do so. Hearing Momoshiki emphasize the word summoned beast, the corners of Norihito's eyes twitched wildly. He naturally couldn't use such an insulting ninjutsu on his own people. Norihito's eyes were cold. Even if I let you take advantage of me, don't think about winning. Tao Shi shrugged. What did you say just now? Don't talk nonsense so easily. Time freeze. He learned his lesson this time. Without finishing his words, he quickly stopped time while the other party was distracted. Then he approached Norihito at the fastest speed. He knew in his heart that Naruto's previous conclusion was not accurate enough. The more powerful the enemy, the shorter the time he could freeze. With the other party's strength, he might not even be able to freeze for 0.01 seconds. However, this little bit of time was barely enough. You're already dead. Tao Shi laughed and stretched his right hand towards Norihito's chest. However, his expression quickly changed. It was as if he had grabbed a barrier, and he couldn't break through the other party's defense with all his strength. Naruto was very happy when he couldn't break through his defense before, but when the person who couldn't break through the defense became him, it was very unpleasant. Break for me. Tao Shi roared and turned his right hand into the form of an electric drill. He kept spinning and finally pierced through Norihito's skin. Just as Tao Shi's face was flushed and he was ready to take the other party's heart in one go, the flow of time quietly recovered. Norihito snorted and looked at Tao Shi, who was close at hand. He instantly understood what was going on and secretly rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, Aizen-sama let me embark on the path of body-refining demon of my ancestor. Otherwise I would be dead now. Tao Shi wanted to withdraw his hand and leave, but he found that the granulation at Norihito's wound was like a tentacle tightly wrapped around him. Norihito's eyes were cold. Isn't it rude to leave after a sneak attack? 9 truth-seeking balls converged into a golden long sword, and Norihito swung it down. Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. This sword slashed through Tao Shi's waist and cleanly cut him in two. Then the sword light flew behind Tao Shi without slowing down, tearing the earth, cutting the sky and splitting the barrier in two. The crowd, who had been shocked by Tao Shi's ending, was now even more shocked. No matter how powerful and violent the attack was before, the barrier was blocked, but it was broken just like that. What was that sword light just now? It's terrible. If it weren't for the barrier, I suspect that the entire continent would have been cut off. Damn it, our strength is not in the same dimension as his. Such a powerful monster is only a member of that organization. How strong is that organization? On the ring, Tao Shi's upper body was very excited. Impossible, I'm a superior warrior from the main family. How can I lose to a branch family? The wound on Norihito's chest healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he smiled gently. But that's the truth. No, it's not over yet. Tao Shi suddenly looked to the side. Give me your power. Chapter 598. Although it was forbidden to kill members of the same race, there was one exception. That was the master and servant who presided over the sacred tree sacrifice. Jin Shi was originally a sacrifice, so if he sacrificed himself in advance, no one would say anything. But the downside was that he might lack a sacrifice when presiding over the sacred tree sacrifice in the future. But Tao Shi couldn't care less about that now. His pride as a superior warrior wouldn't allow him to lower his head to a subordinate. If worst came to worst, he could use him as a sacrifice after defeating this guy. These thoughts flashed through Tao Shi's mind like lightning. Then he roared, "Fusion!" Jin Shi flew towards him without any resistance. "Master Tao Shi, come, please enjoy my power." As he spoke, his body turned into a red chakra fruit. It was a mouth-watering sight. But just as Tao Shi was about to take the fruit, a golden light flashed and split it in two. Fortunately, Tao Shi reacted in time and slightly deviated the fruit's flight path. Sword light flashed and the chakra fruit was cut into two halves, one large and one small. The larger half was taken by Momoshi, and the smaller half was taken by Chenren. Meat half. Norihito tossed the incomplete fruit in his hand and teased, "You only gave me a third, isn't that a bit rude?" Tao Shi gnashed his teeth, "Give it back." Norihito smiled faintly, "Do you think that's possible?" Ah. Tao Shi was furious for a while, staring at Norihito as he swallowed the fruit like he was eating Norihito's flesh. Norihito looked at the fruit in his hand with a conflicted expression. Although it was a chakra fruit, when he thought of Jin Shi's transformation he felt nauseous. But he didn't hesitate for too long. The hesitation between his brows was swept away, and his eyes became firm again. To become the sharpest weapon in Aizen's hands, I must have this awareness. As long as I can improve my strength, let alone fruit, I'll even eat human flesh. Eating the fruit wasn't as disgusting as he imagined. Instead, it was fragrant and melted in his mouth. An abundant power poured into his body, and even his soul seemed to transform and sublimate. My current strength is at least twice as strong as before. Tongren was shocked. Just a third of the chakra fruit had this kind of effect. No wonder Momoshiki wanted to skin him alive. However, he soon thought of something. If I can have such an improvement after eating 1/3 of the fruit, how much stronger would that guy be? His body began to grow taller, and the curved horns on his head became vertical. His hair reached his waist and black lines appeared all over his body. The rinnegan on his palm turned golden, and even a slit opened between his eyebrows. Golden light was faintly discernible. But just as the rinnegan between his eyebrows was about to open, the transformation came to an abrupt end. Just like how a zebra mother ran out of ink during childbirth, the black lines on his upper body suddenly disappeared. The majestic and mysterious golden rinnegan between his eyebrows had also turned into a squinting eye. Seeing this, the people who were originally shocked by his powerful aura immediately laughed out loud. Haha, is this idiot here to be funny? Those who know will understand that it's a squinting eye. Those who don't know will think it's an asshole eye. Momoshiki was so angry that his whole body trembled. First, he glanced at the group of people outside the field fiercely, and then looked at Tongren. "It's all your fault, you bastard." After that, Momoshiki teleported in front of Tongren and kicked him. So fast. Tongren's pupils contracted violently, and he quickly crossed his arms in front of his chest. Bang! Tongren felt as if he had been hit by an asteroid head-on, and he flew out heavily. After stopping, his hands almost lost feeling. Without waiting for him to recover, Momoshiki rushed over again. Tongren hurriedly circled the 9 truth-seeking balls in a circle, blocking in front of him like a shield. However, this shield only played a slight role in cushioning the impact, and the next moment, it shattered with a bang. Mameshiki's knee landed on Tongren's lower abdomen, making him fly out like a cannonball. It was not over yet. Mameshiki pulled him back with gravity and hit Tongren's chest heavily with his elbow. Tongren suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. Didn't you have a good time before? Didn't you want to steal my chakra fruit? Go on, why don't you continue to be arrogant? Mameshiki laughed wildly. Seeing the reversal of the offensive, the people who had mocked Mameshiki before could not laugh anymore, and their eyes were dignified. Damn it, this guy can actually transform. 3 years ago that guy ate himself and this guy ate his companions. Is their way of becoming strong so cruel? What noble alien. They are clearly a group of wild beasts that eat raw meat and drink blood. His strength. Garashi, who was sitting in the sky, was also secretly shocked. The previous Mameshiki was about 2 to 1. 4 euros, but after eating 2/3 of the jinshi, his strength had soared to 5 to 4. 5 euros. It must be known that the strength of the jinshi was not as good as the euros. After eating less than 2/3 of the jinshi, his strength had increased by more than 2 euros. This was not conservation of energy, but it was very Otsutsuki. Garashi muttered to himself, fortunately, this kind of strength is still within the range that I can deal with. At the same time, Otsutsuki, who had turned into a speck of dust in the venue, stared at Tonari with scorching eyes. The birth of every Otsutsuki requires a huge amount of chakra. I didn't expect that a third Otsutsuki could be born on this planet. Moreover, whether it is dojutsu or body, his talent is perfect, and it is enough to be my vessel. Due to the existence of the wedge, under normal circumstances, it is difficult for an Otsutsuki to occupy the body of another Otsutsuki, but that Tensigen is obviously a newborn, and he has never returned to the main family, so he probably doesn't know how to use the power of the wedge. In this case, there is a high probability of success for possession. Even if I can't occupy his body, eating the results of his refinement is also a great supplement. However, that little brat seems to have the same plan as me. With his wisdom, he can naturally understand Mameshiki's thoughts. I must destroy his actions. Just as Mameshiki was about to break the barrier forcibly and go in to grab Tensigen, the situation in the field seemed to have changed subtly. A layer of hazy moonlight flowed around Tonari's body like a sky curtain, blocking Mameshiki's attack. What is this? Mameshiki rubbed his fist. The feeling of hitting cotton made him very uncomfortable. This is the power of the branch family that you look down on. Tonari's right hand grabbed the space, and a huge moon-like eye loomed behind the space crack. Chapter 599. Looking from a distance, the eye behind the space crack gave people a feeling of brilliance. But in the eyes of Mameshiki, who was close at hand, it was not the case at all. The giant eye was composed of countless pupils, and those pupils were rotating like a living hive. Even if it was him, being stared at by these eyes made his hair stand on end. Don't think you can scare me with big eyes. Mameshiki roared loudly. But when these words came out of his mouth, it felt like he was trying to sound tough. Demons and monsters, turn into ashes under the scorching sun. Tonari tore the space crack and expanded it, and the huge Tensigen behind the space seemed to be squeezing in, releasing golden light. Mameshiki subconsciously shot out light waves and bombarded those golden lights. However, those golden lights seemed to have no substance, and they intertwined with the light waves and entered Mameshiki's body in astonishment. There was no penetration or explosion as he imagined. Mameshiki touched his body and laughed mockingly. This is your attack? It doesn't hurt. With that said, Mameshiki suddenly felt a little itchy in his throat and couldn't help but cough. This cough directly coughed out a white and delicate long leg from his throat. It didn't appear out of thin air, but it grew on the inside of his throat. Mameshiki's eyes widened, and he screamed and broke the long leg. Before he could calm down, another head suddenly grew out of his neck. Mameshiki was going crazy. What is this? Heresy. It's simply an evil heresy. His second head was also shouting, Who are you? Why are you growing on my body? If Naruto's previous natural chakra only made him uncomfortable, then the blood energy contained in these golden lights made him mutate. Tonari laughed. Haven't you heard of radiation mutation? Of course he was just fooling Mameshiki. In fact, he used blood energy to make Mameshiki's body lose control and induce genetic mutation. To be precise, it was to make some of Mameshiki's cells live and really have life. Radiation? Mameshiki froze for a moment. Of course he knew this, but how could mutation be so fast? While talking, another tail grew out behind him, but it didn't appear in the tailbone, but in the middle of his buttocks. The little brother in front of him was the same as Datu. Suddenly there were a few more people fighting for positions. Tao Shi said coldly, "This kind of evil power is rare even in the universe. I think you're talking about yourself, right?" Everyone outside the ring nodded subconsciously. This ability was indeed too terrifying. Especially Momoshiki's pruning work, it made them feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. Shinran closed his eyes. "That's because you're too close to the sun. If you worship the sunlight from afar like flowers and plants, you will naturally receive the gift of light. But if you get close to blasphemy, your eyes will be burned by the sunlight." The corners of Tao Shi's eyes twitched. "The sun you're talking about is yourself?" Shinran shook his head slightly. "I'm just the moon that reflects the sunlight. If you're willing to listen to my teachings, you can have a seat among the stars." "Idiot! Madman!" Tao Shi cursed as he finally removed all the extra limbs from his body. "Since you don't cherish this last chance, don't blame me." Shinran waved his hand, and an overwhelming golden light shot towards Tao Shi. Sensing the terrifying aura contained in those light beams, Tao Shi regretted his previous playfulness. If he hadn't been thinking about how to vent his anger on Shinran, this battle would have been over long ago. However, it's not too late to remedy it now. Time freeze. After freezing the surrounding time and space, Tao Shi quickly flew to Shinran. However, before he could do anything, Shinran kicked him out with a whip kick. Tao Shi stopped flying backward and hovered in mid-air, looking at the opposite side in disbelief. How can you move?" Shinran said calmly, "I'm already connected with the Great Tensigen. If you want to stop me, stop the time of the Great Tensigen first." "In other words, I have to close those space cracks?" Tao Shi muttered to himself, but when he saw the Great Tensigen squeezing half of its pupil into this space, his scalp went numb. To close the space cracks, he first had to push this big eyeball back to the moon. Did he think he wasn't mutating fast enough? Shinran didn't give him time to think about countermeasures. He flew in front of Tao Shi and kicked him. Tao Shi instinctively returned with a whip kick. His current strength was above Shinran's, and he kicked Shinran away without any suspense. But before he could be happy, his right leg suddenly swelled and became bigger, as if he had a separate elephant leg. Tao Shi barely maintained his balance and his eyes widened. "You have radiation on your body too?" Shinran shrugged. "You didn't ask me?" Seeing Shinran flying towards him again, Tao Shi didn't dare to let him get close. While tearing off his right leg, he blocked him with long-range attacks. "Get out. Don't come over." Looking at Tao Shi roaring hysterically in the ring, Naruto sighed. "This guy is going to lose." Sasuke was a little relieved. "I didn't expect that Otsutsuki Tonari to have such a perverted trick. Fortunately, I didn't force him into a desperate situation at that time. Just the thought of growing 3 penises like peaches was enough to make one feel horrified." Niji whispered, "This ability seems to be a bit similar to the demon that Sensei mentioned before." "Demon?" Sasuke chewed and repeated it again. Naruto hurriedly asked, "Is it possible to be immune to mutation?" "It's possible." Niji nodded slightly. "If you can perfectly control every cell in the body, theoretically, you can be immune to mutation." "Perfectly control every cell in the body?" Naruto's mouth twitched. "How is this possible?" Niji waved his fist. "No, if it's Sensei, he can definitely do it. He actually combined the path of the indigenous with chakra and deduced it to this extent." Ichiki's eyes were shocked, but he quickly calmed down. "I didn't expect that the superior warrior of the main house would lose to a wandering branch house." He didn't count himself in. He was attacked by surprise, which was completely different from Tao Shi, who was defeated openly. "But this is good. If he wins, I don't have to expose myself in advance." In the ring, Tao Shi's body was completely out of control. Every part of his body had its own thoughts. Right hand, my index finger is bleeding. Left hand, right sister, come and let your brother care about you. Buttocks, from now on you can only enter and not leave. Horns, I want to separate, I can't live like this. Tao Shi finally broke down. "I lost, I admit defeat, hurry up and get these things off me." Chapter 600. Seeing the previously arrogant Momoshiki turn into such a despairing and numb appearance, everyone felt a pang in their hearts. It was too abnormal. This ability was simply too overpowered. Unless only chakra was left, who wouldn't be afraid of their own bodies. For the strong, it wasn't impossible to survive in the form of chakra, but the problem was, how could a rootless duckweed without a body defeat Otsutsuki? This was simply an unsolvable problem. Everyone sighed with emotion, and in a flash, the ring instantly changed back to the appearance of the grand arena. Garashi clapped his hands and appeared on the rostrum. The world's first ninja tournament that has lasted for many days has come to an end. Thank you to all the ninjas for the wonderful battles you gave us in the tournament, and thank you to all the volunteers for your service. Finally, let us give a warm round of applause to His Excellency Tonari. Congratulations on winning the title of the world's first ninja tournament. Hearing Garashi's voice, no matter how unwilling everyone was, they could only applaud with all their might. Raiga sighed in the crowd. Not arrogant in victory, not discouraged in defeat. This kind of bearing is worthy of the god of ninja who changed an era with his own strength and made me run away 3 times. The corner of Kakuzu's mouth twitched. If he understood correctly, the point of Raiga's sentence shouldn't be that Shimizu Garashi scared him into running away 3 times, but that he successfully escaped from Shimizu Garashi 3 times, right? Without waiting for him to speak, Raiga patted him on the shoulder again. You're also very powerful. You've assassinated 2 generations of the god of ninja and still survived. Kakuzu nodded in agreement. Yes, he was also the man who tried to assassinate Shimizu Garashi and was finally defeated by him. Looking at the sympathetic eyes of the two, Karen sighed helplessly. Can you guys be more mature? Boom. The sudden loud noise caused everyone in the grand arena to jump in fright. What's going on? Is it a terrorist attack? How could someone dare to attack? No, it's really a terrorist attack. The dust that filled the arena was blown away by a gust of wind, and what appeared in front of everyone's eyes was the scene of Tonari being trampled under someone's foot. Seeing this scene, everyone was still in a daze. Otsutsuki Tonari, who had just won the title of number 1 in the world, was defeated in the blink of an eye. Aside from the leader, there is actually such a powerful ninja in this world. Damn it, who exactly are you? Lung Rin felt hatred in his heart. He was indeed careless, being ambushed at his most relaxed moment. What was even more hateful was that this person's strength was clearly above his, yet he still launched a sneak attack. He was simply too shameless. This bastard's strength is above mine, yet he is still so cautious. If he wants to escape, he must use the power of the great Tensigen. My name is Otsutsuki Kajushi. I am the one who brought chakra to this world. Ishir saw Tongren's small movements and laughed softly. Save your strength. I won't be like that kid over there and give you a chance. After eating the chakra fruit, Mamoshiki's overall strength was above Mori's. The reason why he lost was entirely because he was too reckless and gave Mori the opportunity to summon the great Tensigen. With Mamoshiki's example, Ishir naturally wouldn't make the same mistake. After successfully attacking Mori, he immediately sealed Mori's power, determined not to give Mori a chance. Otsutsuki Kajushi. On the side, Mamoshiki's eyes regained some color and he looked at Ishir. This body is obviously the body of those humans. Sure enough, there was a problem and he had to use the backup of the wedge. However, this strength is really amazing. Even with a broken body, he still has this kind of power. As expected of the senpai who presided over the sacred tree festival. At this time, the rest of the people also reacted. Bastard, let go of brother Tonari. Karen clenched her fists and rushed forward. Kirito held her shoulder and shook his head slightly. Even Mori is not his opponent. What's the use of you going up? But, Kirito said in a deep voice, we have to believe in Tonari, believe in Aizen-sama. Karen's eyes flashed with starlight. Yes, Aizen-sama must be watching us. This bastard will soon be unlucky. Too despicable, sneak attack. Naruto rolled up his sleeves and was ready to fight with the enemy. Sasuke's eyes were strange. That Otsutsuki Tonari injured Hinata, and now he's being stepped on, shouldn't you be happy? Of course I'm happy, but that bastard made it clear that he wanted to ruin the event. I will never agree to such a thing. Naruto said with righteous indignation. Niji's eyes were fixed on the rostrum and he said without looking back, don't quarrel, sensei may make a move. Hearing Niji's words, both of them were refreshed. In the 8 years since the end of the war, sensei only made a move once, and it was the time when he suppressed Otsutsuki Urushi. But that time ended too quickly and it was hard to call it a battle. Now that sensei might make a move, of course they were looking forward to it. Sure enough, Garashi's voice came from above. Sneak attack again, you're still the same as before. But, have you thought about how to deal with the next trouble? You want to stop me? Ichiki looked up and said with a smile, I let you win 1 game back then and you think that's all my strength? Garashi shook his head gently, I don't think so, and your trouble doesn't come from me. What do you mean? Ichiki frowned, instinctively having an ominous premonition. What he means is... A gentle and elegant voice came from behind Ishur, causing his pupils to contract abruptly. The person under your feet is my adorable subordinate. Ishur subconsciously used his elbow to hit his back. After hitting his opponent's chest, he seized the opportunity to grab his neck. How did you manage to sneak up behind me without making a sound? You don't want to say? Ichiki's palm gradually tightened, but suddenly he felt it difficult to breathe. Something's wrong? No matter how slow Ichiki was, he found the problem at this moment. Release me. A storm was set off in his consciousness space, and the scene in front of him shattered like a mirror. At this time he found that his right hand was strangling his neck. Ichiki hurriedly let go of his right hand, looking in shock and anger. It's an illusion? Did you do it? He still felt it was inconceivable. With his spiritual strength, someone could make him fall into an illusion? Beside him, Taoshur was also shocked. What was going on in this world? In the past, low-level soldiers like Jinshur were enough to suppress a planet, but in this world, strong people stronger than him were appearing one after another. It was ridiculous. On the opposite side, Tongren stood respectfully behind a person. That person smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Is the power of a god so insignificant?" Chapter 601. Seeing Aizen's appearance, no one could remain calm. The nightmare of being manipulated like a puppet 8 years ago reappeared in their minds. Haishi's breathing was rapid. It's that guy, he really appeared. He's the one behind Hollow. Fugaku's forehead was sweating. Is this real or an illusion? Or perhaps both? Minato's eyes were dignified. He knew more than the others, so he was more afraid. He planned and plundered everything in the parallel world, and finally, his shadow once again shrouded this land. Seeing their elders' excitement and fear, Naruto and the other two were in a trance. They didn't experience the battle 8 years ago, so naturally they couldn't understand their fear. Is this man scary? Niji asked subconsciously. Sensei's presence can't eliminate their fear. Think about it. Of the 7 people sent by Hollow, all of them entered the top 32, 5 entered the top 16, 2 entered the top 8, and Tonari Otsutsuki was the champion. Sasuke said in a deep voice. As their leader, this man must be undeniably strong. He defeated Tonari's Otsutsuki, but Aizen-sama? Raiga's jaw dropped. They hadn't seen Aizen fight 8 years ago, so they didn't think it was shocking enough. Now that they saw it with their own eyes, they understood how powerful their leader was. Hashiga narrowed his eyes. With Aizen-sama's strength, why was he willing to submit to Yahiko? Why didn't he use force to solve the 5 major countries? Did Aizen-sama just want to train an opponent? To train an opponent like Shimizu Garashi, who can threaten him and stimulate him to improve? Ichibi calmed down at this moment. Genjutsu was indeed powerful, but Genjutsu wasn't a powerful ability. He just needed to be a little vigilant. Ichibi calmed down. You haven't seen the vastness of the starry sky. Do you know what vastness and insignificance are? Aizen smiled and said, I've never been interested in knowing the vastness and insignificance in the eyes of an insect. Ichibi chuckled. I don't want to kill you. A clown like you, if you die, the world will lose its fun. Then let's try. I've never experienced being killed before. Aizen smiled slightly. Ichibi-sama, can you tell me how you felt when you were killed by your subordinates? With his wound being exposed right in front of him, it was hard for him to maintain his composure. He coldly said, Since you want to experience it so much, then let me help you. Black coffin. He activated his ocular skill, and countless giant cubes fell from the sky and smashed towards Aizen. Boom. Aizen didn't dodge and was smashed into a pile of meat. With his previous experience, Ishur naturally didn't believe that the other party would die just like that. His expression was very ugly. Could it be that I'm under an illusion again? Release. Release. Release me. Boom. Just as First Shur was shouting release, he was suddenly sent flying by a void hammer. When he regained his balance, he saw that the pile of meat had reformed into Aizen's appearance. What? I wasn't hit by an illusion? Aizen sighed. You can't distinguish between reality and illusion so quickly? Ichibi wasn't angered. Instead, he calmly analyzed. It seems I guessed right. As long as I'm prepared, your illusion won't work. Ichibi didn't let down his guard. Although Aizen's illusion didn't work on him, he could deceive the world. This ability was rare even in the vast starry sky. I've been underestimated. Aizen sighed and waved his hand. Thousands of swords appeared in the sky. These flying swords were flowing with a golden luster, surrounding the first move. Turning illusion into reality? Interesting. Ichibi calmly evaluated. Then please try it. Aizen smiled and snapped his fingers. The next moment, thousands of swords flew out. Aizen held the most dazzling flying sword in his hand and flew forward to fight Ichibi. Ichibi, who had been casually dealing with the flying swords, felt the pressure increase when Aizen joined in. On the platform, Garashi quickly set up a barrier. Any of the scattered energy that hit the barrier would cause it to tremble slightly, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Ichibi's strength wasn't comparable to Momoshiki's. After familiarizing himself with the fighting style, he could deal with it more easily. At first, Ichibi panicked, but after the swords were exhausted, he was calm. It's just... Ichibi was about to mock Aizen when he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked down and saw a flying sword piercing his chest. Ichibi couldn't believe it. What? I clearly destroyed those flying swords. Aizen followed. Yes, why? Ichibi's mouth twitched. Did I fall into an illusion again? Aizen put his index finger on his lips. Don't ask me. Ask your heart. It wasn't easy for Ichibi to fall into an illusion when he was on guard. However, the prerequisite was that the other party had to be fully focused on guarding against it. He wasn't the kind of ninja who only knew genjutsu. It was impossible to be alert to his illusion in the middle of a fierce battle. Ichibi quickly understood this, but the problem was that he couldn't pay attention to genjutsu. If he was distracted, he would be hit by Aizen himself. If he was fully focused, he would be hit by Aizen's illusion. In this case, no matter what he did, it was wrong. Ichibi was thinking about countermeasures in his mind. That's it. Let's use external force. Judging from the reaction of those ninjas, they have a deep grudge against Aizen. As long as I break the barrier and drag the guy outside in, I should be able to escape today. The more Ichibi thought about it, the more he felt it was feasible. The three of them will fight against each other and restrain each other until they reach a perfect balance. On the platform, Garashi was sighing. 12 years ago, he had to rely on the fusion to defeat Aizen. But now, whether it was his clone or his main body, he had the strength to fight against Ichibi and even suppress him. Although Ichibi wasn't in his peak state, he didn't reach his limit either. I wonder how strong I will be after fusion compared to Kagaya in his peak state. At least for now, it seems that I'm still too weak. Garashi sighed. Suddenly, he noticed that Ichibi was quietly moving the battlefield to the edge of the arena. With his wisdom, he quickly understood Ichibi's plan. He couldn't help but laugh. This guy is really talented. Isn't it enough that he was beaten by Aizen? Does he want to invite us to fight him? Chapter 602. Tao Shi stood in the barrier, his eyes cold. Although the battle between Kazushi and Aizen was intense, the aftermath didn't affect him. What really made him angry was the situation in front of him. Even Kazushi, who hosted the Sacred Tree Festival once, is no match for the enemy? What's going on with this planet? Tao Shi roared in his mind. His impression of Otsutsuki's invincibility gradually faded away. He wanted to make a move, but Tonari was watching from the side. Considering that his body was still intact, he gave up on the idea of letting Tonari install a limb for free. I must inform the main family and have them send a senior who has hosted the Sacred Tree Festival twice to eliminate this threat. At this moment, the enchantment that enveloped the grand arena suddenly shattered. Tao Shi looked up and quickly understood Kazushi's plan. Driving the tiger to devour the wolf? Although he's the cause of all this, he still has a way to deal with it. While Tao Shi was thinking, he suddenly saw Kazushi being kicked away by Garashi and falling to the ground like a meteor. Several question marks appeared in his mind. Wasn't this development a bit strange? Wasn't he driving the tiger to devour the wolf? Another person who was just as confused as him was Yushir. He flew out of the hole and glared at Shushi. Why me? Garashi said concisely. It's easier to beat you. Damn it, don't think I'm afraid of you. Kazushi's face was cold. No matter how poor he was still someone who once stood at the top of the starry sky. How could he tolerate these inferior creatures who only knew how to rely on hard work to humiliate him? Aizen shrugged. If you want to be angry or afraid, it doesn't matter. You're just a dispensable character. Garashi ignored his existence and looked at Aizen. You didn't let your subordinates participate just to support me, right? Of course not. Kazushi's veins bulged as he attacked both of them. Bastard, there should be a limit to looking down on others. Garashi didn't want to act too much, so he dealt with Kazushi while attacking Aizen. Soon the three of them were fighting fiercely. The process of the battle could be summarized as three people attacking the other two at the same time. Garashi and Aizen blocked the attacks, but Kazushi was constantly being hit. It wasn't just because he was weaker than the other two, but because the other two were cooperating to play him. In this case, it would be strange if he had a good time. In just a few seconds, more than a dozen wounds had appeared on Wuxia's body. If it wasn't for his strong vitality, he would have been beaten to death by now. Seeing this situation, everyone had a rough ranking of the three in their hearts. The leader and Kazushi, Kazushi's leader, Kazushi, of course Kazushi. Finally, Kazushi couldn't help but shouted, "Stop! The three of us can't do anything to each other. Let's call it a day." Although these words were a little exaggerated, it wasn't an exaggeration. The other two were indeed slightly stronger than him, but this gap was nothing. Unless they worked together to kill him, he would be able to escape. However, Garashi ignored him again and looked at Aizen. "Speak, what is your purpose?" Aizen opened his arms as if he was embracing the world. "I came here today to announce something to you. The Fifth Shinobi World War officially begins." The Grand Colosseum was quiet for a moment. Then it began to boil like boiling water. What did he say? The Fifth Shinobi World War? Is this a lie? Why is there a world war all of a sudden? After so many years of peace, the word war seemed to have disappeared from their daily lives, but when it was mentioned again, they couldn't help but feel their hearts throbbing. The Fifth Shinobi World War. Kazushi glanced back and forth between the two with great interest, ignoring the humiliation of being ignored by them. The Fifth Shinobi World War? Garashi pretended to frown. "Ordinary people can't intervene in our battle, so there's no need to involve them. If you want to fight for the ownership of this world, let's go outside the universe and fight." Aizen smiled. Losing a genin, losing a squad, losing a war, and losing a world. Victory is gained through the accumulation of advantages bit by bit. Don't you understand this principle? Hearing Aizen's words, everyone on the Alliance's side shouted with righteous indignation. "Rice leader, let us participate in the war. We have more people, even if it's 100-1, we will still win. Although we can't influence the Rice leader's battle, we can influence Naruto and the others, and let Naruto decide the final battle." Garashi didn't respond to them, but looked at Aizen with a dignified gaze. "What is your purpose of starting a war?" "Well, if you don't make it clear, it seems that you won't cooperate with me." Aizen stopped smiling and said in a deep voice, "I want to use this war to give birth to Gaia's consciousness on the planet under our feet, and then..." Before Garashi could speak, Ichiki shouted, "Impossible, how can a planet's consciousness be artificially cultivated?" Aizen asked with a smile, "So it does exist?" Ichiki didn't mind being tricked and said in a deep voice, "In the vast starry sky, any miracle can happen, and a planet's life is the greatest miracle." Aizen looked at Garashi. "Presumably you also know how powerful Otsutsuki is. If we want to resist the threat from the starry sky or even counterattack and trample them under our feet, our strength alone is far from enough." Ichiki and Momoshiki's mouths twitched slightly, discussing how to counterattack Otsutsuki in front of them. Isn't he looking down on them too much? The people below were shocked. They now know how powerful Otsutsuki is, but no matter how crazy they are, they can only think about how to resist the threat, or how to wander in the starry sky with the planet under their feet. But this man, as soon as he opened his mouth, he wanted to trample Otsutsuki under his feet. What kind of courage is this? The members of Hollow were also shocked. They only wanted to repay Aizen's kindness, but now they suddenly have a sense of honor and mission. Karen's eyes shone like stars. "I knew that Aizen's ambition is not as simple as ruling the world." Kisame sighed. Although Aizen started the war for the world, most people won't be grateful to him. Of course Aizen won't care. He and Shimizu Garashi are polar opposites. They both carry the world on their shoulders, but Shimizu Garashi has too many scruples, while Aizen does as he pleases. If they can unite, they may be able to counterattack Otsutsuki. Chapter 603. "What does this have to do with the war you mentioned?" he asked calmly. "What does this have to do with the war you mentioned?" "Don't worry, let me explain." Aizen said with a smile. "With your attainments in sage mode, it shouldn't be difficult for you to understand the voice of all things, right? Plants, mountains, rivers, and even dust have their own voice." Seeing the confused look on everyone's face, Aizen smiled and said, "You might not understand, but I'll put it another way. Everything has radiation. They can emit electromagnetic waves to the outside world. This radiation is their sound. It's the sound they use to record their own information. This time, everyone was even more confused. Aizen sighed and pointed to Momoshiki, who was watching the show in the distance. Take his previous experience as an example. Every cell has its own life, but what really determines the body's actions is the brain's thoughts, and the parts of the brain that produce consciousness under the mutation. What about this planet? Everything has a voice, just like the cells in the human body. They are the cornerstone of the planet's consciousness, but what really determines the consciousness of the planet is the human race. In the crowd, Orochimaru said, I seem to understand the consciousness of all things constitutes the consciousness of the planet, but only we can determine the existence of the planet's consciousness. Because we can't produce the same voice, the planet's consciousness can't be born? Aizen nodded slightly, almost. Ichiki rubbed his chin. According to what you said, when these voices come together, the planet's consciousness can be born. Do you intend to use war to kill the world until only you are left? Momoshiki clapped his hands and sneered, It's a pity that such an idea didn't come to our Otsutsuki clan. Aizen shook his head gently, as long as one voice overwhelms the others, it's enough. I couldn't help but ask, is there no war in the shinobi world that could achieve this condition? It should be a matter of scale and degree. Anoki analyzed, no war can spread across the entire world and no war can affect everyone's heart. When the world's energy is invested in a war, everyone's mind will be worried at the last moment. Orochimaru analyzed. In other words, at the peak of the war, at the moment when fate is at its strongest, the spark of life is ignited. However, I think that the conditions for the birth of a planet's consciousness should not be limited to this, right? War is only the catalyst to achieve this condition, the spark that ignites the fuse. Aizen smiled. The state of the planet itself is also very important. Just like a fetus in a mother's womb, if the mother doesn't have enough nutrition, it won't be able to give birth to life. The state of the planet itself? I was confused and could not help but grumble. Stop beating around the bush and speak clearly. What is the most suitable breeding ground for a planet's consciousness? Aizen snapped his fingers. Immortals, gods, and demons, these three are the mainstream of this world. Most of the people were confused. They already knew that chakra was a foreign system, but when it came to local forces, not many of them knew about it. Aizen continued. Therefore, the final battle should be carried out on the battlefield where these three forces converge. Converge these three forces? Sasuke analyzed. Immortals, you should be eyeing the holy space of the three summoning clans, right? Aizen didn't deny it. As for the demons, one is the great Tensigen on the moon, and the other is your dream world. Naruto's eyes widened. How can the dream world be related to the demons? Powerful great demons are almost immortal. In ancient times they used sealing methods, but the results were not ideal. However, the aura of the great demon I sensed in the dream world was a different method. It was captured and used as the source of power for the dream world. Aizen smiled. Otherwise, where do you think the power you usually consume in the dream world comes from? Everyone was flabbergasted when they heard this. An undying great fiendish demon sounded very powerful. But what happened? It was directly captured by the leader. If Aizen didn't mention it, they wouldn't even know about it. Niji was speechless. No wonder Sensei knows so much about the demons. It turns out that he captured a greater demon as a slave. Raiga was horrified. Too cruel. It's simply an inhumane black workshop. Aizen continued. As for the gods, we'll use the Pure Land instead. This way the sage, demons, and god systems will all be gathered together. These three systems are the hotbeds for the birth of consciousness. It's the environment of the origin of life. Next, the most important thing is nutrition. This nutrition refers to chakra. The huge amount of chakra that can give birth to a planet's consciousness can only be provided by the goddess of chakra, the source of chakra. Finally, in the ultimate realm of the Trinity, the great light will be born. In fact, most of the above were his irresponsible conjectures. He didn't care if the planet's consciousness would be born because of this. But the others didn't know. They only felt that the leader of Hollow's words were unfathomable and terrifying. Big move, really big move. The three holy lands, the two poles of earth and moon, and the pure land. Such a large structure was just a hotbed. As the source of chakra, the goddess who created the world, Kagaya, was seen as a nutrient. This kind of magnanimity shocked them deeply. If it was in the ignorant era of the past, they might have bowed their heads in worship. After the shock, Inoki asked again. It's indeed a wild imagination. But all of this is just your conjecture. What if the planet's consciousness isn't born in the end? Aizen looked at Garashi. Do you have the same idea as him? Garashi was silent for a moment. If the plan succeeds, the winner can swallow the planet's consciousness and truly control the world's power. If the plan fails, I think your plan is to let the loser become the planet's consciousness and let the winner swallow it, right? To be precise, most of what he said before was nonsense. Only this sentence was his true intention. He did this mainly to raise funds so that everyone would put their power into the gamble. Not only the immortals, demons and gods, but also the Ichiban, Peach, Rikudo, Hamura and even Kagaya. In the end, the money of the people would be returned, and he would take all the money of the tycoons. After all, the banker, the dealer, and the gambling table were all his people. How could a few Otsutsuki compete with him? Chapter 604. Aizen nodded. That's more or less it, but the planet's consciousness is vast and powerful. If we're not careful, we can create a god to suppress us. Therefore, we need to make a rule in the ultimate battlefield. The winner can take away the power of the loser. This is the only way to ensure that the final winner can suppress the planet's consciousness and become a true god. Hearing this, everyone somewhat understood his plan. Everything is on the scales of fate. The loser eats the dust and the winner takes all. It's cruel, but it's also realistic. Since they want to defeat Otsutsuki, they must be prepared to give up everything. If they can't give up anything, they can't change anything. While everyone's mind was in turmoil, Ichiki suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. If I wasn't here, you might have succeeded. Aizen smiled. Oh? Then what can your presence change? Ichiki shrugged. Don't look at me like this. No matter what, I'm still a superior warrior of Jupiter. If I send a message back to my family that there are extremely dangerous rioters on this planet, what do you think will happen? Everyone's heart sank. From the Yura style to the Momo style, and then to the Otsutsuki style, the enemies that appeared were stronger than the previous one. Moreover, from the information conveyed by their words, there were many people on that planet who were stronger than them. If he sent a message back to the clan, they might not be able to deal with the next enemy. However, Aizen just smiled. Go ahead. Ichiki frowned. Do you think I'm joking? Aizen smiled. I know you have some ideas about this planet, but don't worry, just do as you wish. Ichiki's expression became dignified. Could it be that you, without waiting for him to finish, Taosher cursed with an ugly expression. Bastard, the signal is blocked. Aizen smiled. That's bad, the signal in this remote area isn't good. Ichiki's expression changed. How do you know the clan's contact information? Did Kagaya tell you? But he quickly denied this conjecture. No, although that woman is stronger than the average superior warrior, this is top secret information that only superior warriors can know. She's just a junior warrior. Aizen naturally wouldn't say that he knew this secret from Ichiki in a parallel world. You don't need to know. By the way, I've sealed the door. No one is allowed to leave this world until the war is over. Mamoshiki's expression changed again. He pushed open the door and walked in. A moment later, he came out with a dark expression. He set up a barrier on the moon. Even if we use a space jump, we can't cross that distance. Although the barrier can't be broken. Isher naturally understood what he meant. It would take some time to break the enchantment. If they insisted on breaking the enchantment, they might be sealed before the enchantment was broken. Seeing the two's defeat, they couldn't help sighing with emotion. Of course, the Otsutsuki, Ichiki. Ichiki rubbed his fists and smiled maliciously. Before we fight to the death, shouldn't we clear the battlefield first? Everyone also reacted and looked at Ichiki and Mamoshiki with a strange light in their eyes. Fight against outsiders. Fight against outsiders first. This is an internal matter of the shinobi world. Let's get rid of the irrelevant people first. Ichiki's face was cold. Even when he was attacked by Kagaya, he wasn't as angry as he was now. He was threatened by a group of low-level creatures that he could kill with just a breath. What's more hateful is that he can't ignore this threat. They are the weakest of the three, and it's already difficult for them to fight alone. If the first and second join forces, it won't take long for them to be sealed. Ichiki suppressed his anger. You sealed the space in advance. It seems that you have been plotting against us for a long time, but don't be happy too early. Just when he was about to fight to the death, Aizen suddenly laughed. Don't worry, in fact, there is not only a dead end in front of you, there is also a bright future, and even a way to win everything, and that is to participate in our war. Hearing his words, many people were confused. He forced Otsutsuki into a dead end. Wasn't it to eliminate the threat and solve the unexpected factor? Some people's eyes flashed, they had already guessed his thoughts. Ichiki didn't feel happy because of this, he just lowered his eyelids. You said so much just to let us put our strength on the gambling table so that you can win more? Aizen didn't deny it. After all, we are going to counterattack Otsutsuki, the higher the better. You said you were going to counterattack Otsutsuki? Do you expect me to help you? Ichiki's words were full of sarcasm. If you are so loyal, you would have sent a message to the clan for so many years. Aizen laughed. Admit it, you are also coveting the power of this special planet. Ichiki's eyes moved, he was no longer a novice who had just arrived on this planet, he naturally knew how powerful this planet's potential was. Not only did it create a monster like Otsutsuki Kagaya, but even the separated part of her power was no weaker than a high-level warrior. It can be said that this life planet is at least equal to 30 ordinary life planets. No wonder this senior didn't send a message to the clan for so many years, he was worried that someone would steal the chakra fruit he wanted? Thinking of this, Ichiki's heart suddenly became restless. Otsutsuki Kagaya is a low-level warrior, but he ate the chakra fruit of this planet and became so strong. If I was in his place. Ichiki pretended not to see Ichiki's strange look and decisively admitted, I do have an idea, but why would I do something that is hopeless? Sandwiched between you, there is no way I can win. Aizen shook his index finger. Isn't it better to leave later than to be eliminated now? Besides, your shell organization should have a lot of power, it's not impossible to become the final winner. Shell organization. Many of the higher-ups of the alliance suddenly understood, he really was the leader of another mysterious organization. However, they thought that the threat of the shell organization was higher than Hollow, but now it seems that it was the opposite. Ichiki wanted to say something, but Ichiki was already impatient. Okay, I agree. Ichiki narrowed his eyes and re-examined this junior, he didn't speak. Chapter 605. War, and it's the Shinobi World War. When all of this became a foregone conclusion, most of the people in the alliance were in a heavy mood. Only those who had experienced the war could understand the cruel reality hidden under the surface of passion and passion. Compared with the worries of the older generation, most of the younger generation are eager to try. They have always lacked a stage to show themselves. They have powerful strength, but they can only move freely in the virtual world. It's inevitable that they will be unwilling to be lonely. Lee was so excited that he hit the air in front of him. I can feel it, the youth that Kai-sensei said is burning. Shikamaru was sleepy. What? How can I sleep in the future? At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the direction of the alliance. Shikamaru woke up in fright. What happened? What happened? As he was talking, he suddenly felt his shoulders sink. Surprisingly, it was Shaoli who jumped onto his shoulder and looked into the distance. Not good, the prison has been attacked. What? The prison was attacked? Hearing this news, Shikamaru didn't bother to pull Lee down. Unlike the narrow prisons in the Ninja Village era, in order to implement the purpose of reform through labor, prisons in the new era are often built on large projects, so they cover a large area and are not in the center of the alliance. Although they are far away from the alliance because there is a barrier set by the leader, they don't worry about the prisoners losing control. They didn't expect that someone would dare to attack the prison today. Dare to attack the prison? Is it some mysterious organization? Just when Shikamaru was worried, he suddenly noticed someone's dangerous gaze. He saw Choji rubbing his palms as if he wanted to jump on his shoulder like Lee. Shikamaru was scared and quickly hid in the chaotic crowd. After the movement spread, the arena, which had been calm, was once again in chaos. Many jonin spontaneously ran in the direction of the prison, but before they ran a few steps, they saw a huge castle flying in the sky in the distance. The shape is beautiful, grand, like the residence of a god. What is that? It's a sky city flying in the sky. Even if they have entered the new era, they couldn't help but be shocked to see this product across the era. Of course, these shocked people didn't include the two from Otsutsuki. Tao Shi's disdainful gaze swept over the crowd. If these natives are so surprised to see a city in the sky, wouldn't they be so shocked if they saw a bastion? Shir finally regained some sense of superiority. No matter how strong they are, they're just country bumpkins who haven't even left the planet. What the F***ck is this? In his field of vision, thousands of mechas flew out from the edge of the castle and fired light beams at the barrier. In a few breaths, the light shield that enveloped the prison was pierced through. Naturally, they weren't the only ones who were shocked. Everyone in the alliance was shocked speechless. After a long while, Anoki said in a hoarse voice, "That's dust release and 1,000 people are using it at the same time." Although there were rumors in the Biology Research Institute that they had developed artificial bloodline limits and bloodline elimination were completely different. Most bloodline limits could be defended against, but how could dust escape be defended against? It could only dodge. However, the 1,000 dust escapes sweeping attacks made it impossible for anyone to dodge. What was even more frightening was that those who used dust escape did not seem to be humans but mecha puppets. This also meant that after these mechas were damaged they could be quickly replaced. Who does this castle belong to? I hope it's not hollow. As soon as this thought appeared in their minds, they heard Aizen's laughter from the sky. "Everyone, are you curious about my palace?" Sure enough, it's him. Everyone's heart sank. Even those who thought that the Alliance had a great advantage were worried at this moment. They had originally thought that although the Hollow was powerful, they were few in number and most likely would be weak in the future. But the sudden appearance of a castle in the sky, 1,000 mechas and 500,000 white Zetsu soldiers in the prison made them realize that this war would not be as easy as they thought. AI asked. Having dust release and being able to use it are two different things. Suchikage, dust release should consume a lot of chakra, right? Anoki nodded slightly. Yes, dust release consumes a lot more chakra than ordinary ninjutsu. Even I can only use it 20 times in a row. Raza pondered. Puppets usually use chakra from puppeteers, but no puppeteer can provide chakra to use dust release 1,000 times at the same time. Most likely they use Grayer or as a power source for these puppets. Empress Shomiai analyzed. Don't forget, the Grayer or vein is in their hands. Ichikushi and Mamashiki were also frowning. Although they can absorb chakra, if the attack is too dense, it is inevitable that there will be some gaps. And for an attack like dust release, once there is a gap, it will be a big problem. Ichiki recalled the time when he fought Aizen. His sword was ignored by Aizen's genjutsu. If that sword was replaced with dust release. In this silent atmosphere, Garashi looked at Aizen and shook his head gently. Isn't it too much to attack the prison? Aizen smiled slightly. Last time I suffered a big loss at your hands. This time you should let me get back at you. Hearing the conversation between the two, everyone's morale was low because of Aizen's display of strength. So that guy suffered a big loss at the hands of their leader and came to take revenge? Garashi sighed softly. Did he really suffer a loss? Aizen didn't comment. But aren't you going to stop them? Garashi was silent for a moment. Let them serve for 8 years, that should be enough to offset their sins. However, they are too different from ordinary humans. There is no place for them to survive in this world. It might be a good choice to hand them over to you. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone suddenly understood. No wonder Skynet didn't respond. It turned out that the leader acquiesced to their plan. They didn't object to this result. In fact, they felt a lot more relaxed. After the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War, they were told that some of the white Zetsu were the product of chakra absorbed by the Tree World realm. At that time they rejoiced. Fortunately, there was a hero in this era who saved the world. They also sympathized with the white Zetsu who may have been their ancestors. However, sympathy was one thing. If they were asked to live with those strange creatures, they would never be willing to do so. Therefore, when they heard that Aizen was going to take away the white Zetsu, their first reaction was relief. It was as if the burden on their shoulders was taken away. Ichiki and Mamashiki were a little anxious. Now that the Hollow has an army, what about them? The Hollow has hundreds of people, they can't just let the two of them do everything. Where are their confidants? Chapter 606. After the two organizations left, everyone was still immersed in the shock of today's events. First, it was the world's strongest, but in the blink of an eye, the world's strongest was trampled under someone's feet, then the appearance of the two mysterious organizations, and the declaration of the Fifth Shinobi World War. This series of unforeseen events was really too much to handle. People with a slightly weaker ability to accept things are starting to doubt the reality. At this time, A suddenly said, "Leader, don't talk about your resignation." Raza instantly became alert. Something is wrong, shouldn't this be his line? But before he could speak, Minato nodded and said, "I agree with Reikage's opinion." Garashi hesitated for a moment. "Why do you have such an idea?" I said in a deep voice. "Whether it's me, Minato, or anyone else, we don't have the power to unite people's hearts. Only with you in this position can you make everyone believe in you and make everyone feel at ease." Empress Shomiai nodded. "If we talk to strong enemies like Aizen and Otsutsuki Kazushi, it will only make us a laughingstock and let them laugh at us. Everyone nodded in agreement. Although Aizen and Kazushi appeared to be very elegant, this is respect for the strong people of the same level. If they were to talk to them, they might not even be able to enter the door. The other party could easily make them look bad. Garashi opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Reikage continued. I know what you want to say, you want to resign after the war, right? But have you ever thought that after the war we will enter the interstellar era? According to them, the laws of the interstellar era are crueler than those on the planet. Without a strong leader, without power, even if we enter the interstellar era, we will only be treated as aborigines and be slaughtered. Anoki also said. I understand your thoughts, you want to let go and let everyone grow, but this world needs God, it is too fragile to withstand a storm. Raza said loudly. Just like you did before, continue to protect this world. Listening to them, the surrounding people also became restless. Rai-sama, please don't refuse anymore. Only if you continue to be the leader, this ship will not lose its way. Not only because of what Garashi had done for this world, but also because of what they had experienced today. In front of such starry sky forces, only the leader could speak to them as equals. Without a leader, this world was just an ordinary indigenous planet. Garashi took a deep breath under everyone's expectant and fanatical gazes. Since everyone has said so much, I will not be pretentious. I will sit in this position until I lead everyone to the peak of starry sky. At this moment, his soul began to boil like boiling water. He was receiving everyone's blessings. Under the catalysis of external pressure, those thoughts became purer and more fanatical. If it weren't for the half of the Hangyu that had purified his faith, he would have suspected that he would have been blessed and pregnant, like Huey. The crowd didn't know what he was going through, so they just cheered wildly. Seeing such a fanatical scene, A sighed in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't persist in that unrealistic fantasy. Otherwise, he would have been asking for humiliation. In fact, this is also good. I should have changed to a more realistic goal long ago. After untying the knot in his heart, he suddenly felt that even his bones were relaxed. He couldn't help but learn from those young people and shouted in a rough voice. Rai-sama, I want to give birth to a monkey for you. The four Kages next to him trembled in fear and looked at him in disbelief. They didn't expect him to be such a Reikage. Killer Bee was even more horrified. He knew that his brother had always wanted to be the leader. Today he suddenly changed his mind. Could it be? Thinking that his brother was still single at this age, Killer Bee couldn't help but worry. I have to help my brother find a female talent. Wait, I seem to be single too. As if witnessing a milestone, everyone walked out of the arena with their heads held high. While walking, they talked about what they saw today. In the crowd, Naruto asked longingly, will we enter the Star Age in the future? It's still early. Sasuke shook his head slightly. Let's solve the threat of those two organizations first. Niji said with a dignified face. They're not easy to deal with. Hollow has Otsutsuki Tonari, Shell has Otsutsuki Mamashiki, and we have no one in the second tier who can fight against them. They couldn't even defeat Mamashiki and Tonari before they transformed, let alone the two who ate the chakra fruit. Hearing him say this, Naruto and Sasuke inexplicably missed Big Naruto and Big Sasuke's cheats. If they had Rikudo Senin's cheats, they could help Sensei. Sai, did the Rikudo Senin of this time and space oversleep? Naruto sighed. Sasuke also sighed faintly. Is it because we're too strong that he doesn't want to lend us his power? Niji was confused. What Rikudo Senin? What did you two do behind my back? At this moment, the three received a message at the same time. Sensei asked us to go to his office. Niji looked up and asked, you also received the message, right? Naruto and Sasuke nodded together. Sensei said that he has something good for us. The smile on Niji's face froze and he carefully read the message twice. In the end, he was convinced that Sensei didn't mention anything good in the message. Niji was depressed. It must be because I lost the first round and embarrassed Sensei. At this moment in Garashi's office, he returned the truth-seeking ball carried by his main body to Rikudo, who had just woken up and said apologetically, I'm sorry. The truth-seeking ball I brought to the parallel world was eaten by the enemy. Eaten? Rikudo's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly calmed down. To be able to eat my truth-seeking ball, the enemy must not be underestimated. Was it Mother or Ichibi? It was Otsutsuki Ichibi. Then, Garashi told him about his experience in the parallel world. At first, Rikudo was calm, but the more he listened, the more shocked he became. In the end he couldn't help but ask, Otsutsuki Ichibi died? And it's the kind of death where even the soul origin is sacrificed. That was a high-level warrior of Otsutsuki, the pinnacle existence in the boundless starry sky. Even Rikudo had to be wary of him. Yet he died just like that and he was eaten clean. Garashi took out half of the Hogyoku. His soul is inside. Rikudo looked at the half of the Hogyoku in amazement, and then sighed. The younger generation is really formidable. Aizen's heart is too big, so big that even I am afraid of him. Fortunately you turned the tide. Chapter 607. Hearing this, Garashi smiled bitterly. He is indeed ambitious. Six Paths was shocked. After he returned to this world, did he do something amazing? Garashi sighed. Nothing big. He is just preparing to gather all the power to give birth to the consciousness of the planet. Six Paths was confused. What is the consciousness of the planet? Then Shueisha recounted what had happened that day. After listening, Six Paths had an expression of, I don't understand but I am shocked. He stroked his beard and said, since Ichibi did not deny it, it seems that the consciousness of the planet does exist. If his guess is correct, he may be able to obtain the power to defeat Otsutsuki. In his opinion, if he could integrate the power of the planet, his power would be undeniably strong. It would be easy for Otsutsuki to destroy the creatures on the surface of the planet. Even creating or destroying a planet like the moon would not be too difficult for him. But if he wanted to destroy the planet under his feet with brute force, even a high-level warrior like Ichibi would not be able to do it. It was obvious that the overall power of the planet was far above Otsutsuki. Garashi nodded slightly. I think so too. There is no such thing as guarding against a thief for 1,000 days. Instead of being afraid all the time, it is better to fight hard and gain the power to fight back against Otsutsuki. Fight back against Otsutsuki. Six Paths' face showed a look of longing and shock. Even he had never thought of fighting back against Otsutsuki. At this moment, when he heard Garashi and Aizen express their ambition to defeat Otsutsuki, he couldn't help but sigh that he was indeed old. This era belongs to them after all. I just need to give them a push from behind. Six Paths sighed and laughed. How can I not participate in such a big battle? Shushi was overjoyed. That's great. With the addition of you, the immortal of the Six Paths, our chances of winning are much higher. However, Six Paths shook his head slightly. I am just a follower. Since I have joined the alliance, I should call you leader. How can that be? Without waiting for Garashi to finish, Rikudo changed the topic. You said that Aizen occupied the moon, and he had a subordinate who had the Tensigen and could summon the Grand Tensigen, right? As expected, Garashi's attention was diverted. Yes, his name is Tonari Otsutsuki. Six Paths sighed. Hamura's consciousness is lodged in the Grand Reincarnated Eye. Sometimes he is awake, sometimes he is confused. Since they can control the Grand Reincarnated Eye, it means that Hamura is controlled by them. In other words, my participation can only offset the enemy's hidden strength. Garashi was shocked. I didn't expect Aizen to be hiding his strength. The Six Dao nodded with emotion. I thought that the first form and the home family would be our biggest enemies. I didn't expect that when I woke up, they would become the weakest party. The two of them actually lost because of their prejudice. They confused our world with other planets. It's inevitable that they misjudged. Garashi analyzed. However, it's time for them to throw away their arrogant thoughts. As long as they correct their mentality with Otsutsuki's background, their threat can't be underestimated. Rikudo agreed. Yes, at this moment there was a knock on the door. Come in. The three of them pushed the door open and saw their sensei talking to an old man floating in the air. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes lit up. Here comes the cheat. Six Paths, who was about to introduce himself, froze. Why does the reincarnation of Indra Chakra in this era feel strange? Is there something wrong with his eyes? These three are my disciples, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke and Hyuga Neji. Garashi introduced them to each other. As for this one, he is the first ancestor of Shinobi, the god of Shinobi, Six Paths Sennin. Six Paths Sennin. The three of them were very shocked. Six Paths kindly twirled his beard. Ah, that's all in the past. Now, I'm just a subordinate of your sensei. Subordinate? Naruto and the other two were really shocked this time. The first ancestor of all shinobi in myths and legends, Six Paths Sennin actually claimed to be their sensei's subordinate. Although they guessed that their sensei's strength might be stronger than Six Paths Sennin, the various identities of Six Paths Sennin were too significant. More than 10 years ago, when Pain of the Akatsuki first appeared, just because he had the same eyes as Six Paths Sennin, he made the shinobi world feel like they were facing a great enemy. It can be seen how great the influence of Six Paths Sennin on the shinobi world was. The three of them were shocked and couldn't help but feel proud. Even the legendary Six Paths Sennin was their sensei's subordinate. Garashi waved his hand again and again. Six Paths Sennin is too modest. You should be. Without waiting for him to finish, Six Paths interrupted him. This old man is not modest. I did make a small contribution to the world, but in terms of leadership, my ability is not good. I can't mediate family affairs and even let family affairs run through the Millennium War. This is my fault. Naruto grabbed his hair. Grandpa, can you speak like a normal person? I mean, can you speak like us? Six Paths' mouth twitched slightly. The mood he had brewed was interrupted. He couldn't help but sigh. I can't even deal with family affairs properly, let alone govern the country. This world does need a god, but that god is neither me nor mother nor Otsutsuki but your sensei. The three of them nodded deeply. They had heard about the root of the dispute between Senju and Uchiha. This Six Paths Sennin's ability to govern the family was really not good. They still needed their sensei to save the world. Garashi shook his head slightly and didn't say anything. He immediately looked at the three and said, I called you here today because I have a task for you. The three of them suddenly became excited and didn't ask what the task was. We will do it, Garashi said seriously. Previously in the Grand Arena, Aizen showed his desire for the three great Sage Holy Lands. I suspect that he will make a move on the Sage Holy Lands in the near future. You three inform the three great Sage Holy Lands and let them be vigilant. If necessary, abandon the Holy Lands and move to the real world. The three of them nodded in unison, indicating that they understood. Sage Holy Lands. Six Paths' eyes showed a nostalgic look. Todamaru is now old. Todamaru? Naruto wondered. Is there a toad with this name in Mount Myaboku? Six Paths laughed. It's the great sage toad you speak of. With that said, Six Paths seem to have made a big decision. You may encounter enemies in the Holy Lands this time. Let me give you a gift. Chapter 608. Rikudo shook his head slightly. In fact, this gift isn't very suitable. But for the current situation, there's no better choice. Naruto asked, What gift? Rikudo smiled. Haste. Naruto's tone was low. Don't tell me it's to teach us how to farm? Rikudo shook his head helplessly. I'm the one who gave you the power to forcibly raise your strength in a short period of time. If the situation wasn't tense, I wouldn't want to use this method. If you don't want to, yes, of course. Naruto hurriedly said. By the way, after we're forcibly raised, can we fight Tonari and Mamashiki? Rikudo was hesitant. I haven't seen them fight. According to Garashi, they ate a chakra fruit. Their strength is most likely above my power. But it's not absolute. You have the chakra of my two sons. After stimulating your potential, you may be able to fight against them. That's enough. As long as we can fight back. Naruto was full of confidence. He had seen Mamashiki's fighting skills in the convention. Was a mess. If it weren't for the other side's strength, he wouldn't have lost. Although Tonari was much better than Mamashiki, his combat experience was still slightly lacking compared to them. Sasuke and Neji were also excited. Great. Next time we meet them, we'll return the humiliation we suffered in the convention. Seeing the three cheering, Rikudo awkwardly interrupted them. Ahem, Naruto and Sasuke are okay, but Neji, you're not the reincarnation of my two sons' chakra. You may not be able to bear my power. The smile on Neji's face suddenly froze, but he suddenly realized that Sensei had predicted this scene long ago. Rikudo also felt a little embarrassed and hurriedly remedied. I have a palm leaf fan that can release the 5 attributes of fire, water, thunder, wind, and earth at once. Under normal circumstances, it requires a lot of chakra, but after my modification, it can be activated with a small amount of chakra. I'll give it to you as a gift. With that, he took out a red and white fan from the void and handed it to Neji. Is this a ninja tool? And it's an extremely rare ninja tool. Tian will like it, right? Thinking of his wife who had a habit of collecting ninja tools, Neji muttered in his heart and asked embarrassedly, Six Paths, Sama, can I give this away? Six Paths understood that the banana fan wouldn't increase Ningji's strength by much, so he didn't reject it. Since I'm giving it to you, it's yours. Make your own decision. Thank you, Lord Samsara. Ningji was happy and worried at the same time. Would Tian be so happy that she would want to reward him tonight? Garashi said in a timely manner, "How about this? I'll teach you the god summoning technique later. You can borrow my power when you're in danger." Naruto and Sasuke understood that this should be their sensei's way of compensating Niji. After all, both of them were cheaters. Ningji was touched. His teacher didn't blame him at all. At this time, Sasuke hesitantly raised his hand. "Sensei, I may need to find someone to cooperate with me." His dojutsu needed someone to cooperate with him to maximize its effect. The last battle had already proven that all snakes were unreliable. If he wanted to defeat the enemy, he needed a reliable helper. Garashi nodded slightly. "I happen to have the same idea. You can stimulate your potential at 6 Paths Sama's place. I'll equip each of you with an assistant." Assistant? The three of them looked forward to it. Who would it be? After the three left, 2 more people came to Garashi's office. Leader. Looking at the 2 who were so respectful, Garashi pretended to be angry. "Are you estranged from me?" Rin smiled playfully. "Etiquette can't be abolished. Don't worry about it in private." Garashi smiled helplessly. "Kakashi, Rin, sit down." Rin sat down gracefully, but Kakashi was very reserved, only daring to sit in the front half of the sofa. "Don't be shy. Just sit down." Kakashi smiled awkwardly. "It's okay. I'm fine sitting like this." He didn't have Naruto's vitality. Naruto recovered in a day or 2, but his back still hurt. Shushi quickly understood. He laughed and said, "Why didn't you tell me that you haven't recovered yet? Let me give you a hand." "Of course, no need." A burst of green light sprinkled on Kakashi's body, making him almost moan out of comfort. At the same time, the 2 of them swallowed back their words. Garashi looked back and forth between the 2 with a strange look. "It seems that I did something unnecessary? Do you need me to reverse your state?" Kakashi laughed awkwardly. "Forget it." Although he felt a little regretful, he didn't want to experience the pain of broken chrysanthemum again. Garashi felt a little funny. "I didn't expect that in the end, it was Naruto who helped them. But, with their current state, isn't it too cruel to take them to visit someone? It's killing them." In this awkward atmosphere, Rin took the initiative to change the topic and asked, "Senpai, why did you call us here today?" Garashi abandoned the distracting thoughts and said seriously, "Haven't you been looking for a chance to reduce Bordered Soil's sentence?" Rin and Kakashi didn't care about the awkwardness at this moment and nodded repeatedly. "Do you have a way?" Garashi clenched his hands and supported his chin. "Now that we've entered the stage of a full-scale war, any combat power is an extremely precious resource. I intend to let him redeem himself. I'll take you to visit him." "Great." The 2 cheered. "Then let's go now." Garashi snapped his fingers, and the 3 of them were instantly transferred from the office to the prison. Amazing. Although Rin knew how powerful Senpai was, she couldn't help but sigh. Looking at the empty prison, Kakashi asked, "Senpai, Aizen sent people to attack the prison. Didn't he take them away?" Garashi shook his head. "It's a tacit understanding between me and him. He only took the white Zetsu." "Oh." The 3 of them walked around the prison, and soon they saw 3 people working hard to move bricks in the labor camp. Bordered Soil, Nagato, and Yahiko. Seeing the Akatsuki's triumvirate fall to the state of the prison, the 3 of them felt a little emotional. Bordered Soil. Hearing the familiar voice, the brick in Bordered Soil's hand fell to the ground. "Is that you, Rin?" Seeing Bordered Soil's eyes staring at Rin as if attracted by a magnet, Kakashi coughed once, twice, thrice, until he coughed 6 or 7 times in a row. Bordered Soil looked at him impatiently. "Which idiot?" "Ah, Kakashi senpai, you're here too." Chapter 609. Kakashi said angrily, "I'm really grateful that you can still see us." Bordered Soil laughed. "Ha, how could I not see you?" On the side, Nagato and Yahiko came over with a complicated expression. "You should be here today because of the prison riot, right? Can you tell us what happened?" Bordered Soil nodded again and looked at Rin with concern. "Was the village attacked? Rin, are you injured?" Rin shook her head slightly. "Senpai is here, everyone is safe." Kakashi added, "Although Akatsuki attacked the prison, they didn't dare to go too far." "Akatsuki?" The 3 were confused, and when they were about to continue asking, Garashi interrupted. "The shinobi world is currently facing the threat of the 5th Shinobi World War. It's a waste to keep powerful people like you in prison. If you are willing, I can temporarily release you on the condition of commuting your sentence. Bordered Soil didn't need to say much, and he agreed without thinking. Nagato and Yahiko looked at each other. We also agree. They were grateful to Garashi for letting go of Conan, so they didn't refuse. However, Garashi said calmly, don't agree too early. There is one thing I must tell you. One of the enemies you will have to deal with after you go out is your old friend. Nagato asked in surprise, did someone rebuild the Akatsuki? Is it Conan or Uncle Aizen? It's Aizen. However, instead of rebuilding, it's better to say it's incorporation. Kakashi explained with a dignified expression. The Akatsuki's power only occupies a small part of Akatsuki. Yahiko was surprised. Onigaki and Sasori are already very powerful. Aren't they ranked in Akatsuki? That's not necessary. I'll tell you this. Kakashi tried to organize his words. The Alliance recently held a World's Ninja Tournament. All the powerful ninjas except Senpai participated, but the title of World's #1 was taken away by a teenager. That teenager is Aizen's subordinate. Rin added, the strength of the top 4 is not weaker than Madara and Naruto. Hearing them say this, the three of them were greatly shocked. If there was a gap in the Alliance's strength and someone took the crown, they could understand. However, the strength of the top 4 was not weaker than First Hokage and Madara. For an outsider to take away the title of #1 in the world, it could only mean that this person was terrifyingly strong. But such a powerhouse was only a subordinate of Aizen. It was terrifying. Nagato sighed with emotion. As expected of Uncle, if he was the leader of Akatsuki, perhaps things wouldn't be like this now. Bordered Soil took a deep breath. I knew that Aizen wasn't simple, but I didn't expect him to be so abnormal. Yahiko frowned. He naturally didn't want to confront Uncle Aizen, so he asked again, you just said that Akatsuki is only one of the parties? Are there other enemies? Garashi nodded slightly. There is a force called the Shell Organization. The three of them were stunned again. How come there is another Shell Organization? It's reasonable to say that the Alliance should be the dominant force in the outside world. In this case, it should be difficult for such an organization to grow. How come the mysterious organization is more powerful than them? Moreover, since the Alliance is treating them seriously, it means that the strength of this Shell Organization is above that of the Akatsuki. Bordered Soil considered his words and asked, what is this Shell Organization? Kakashi explained according to Garashi, you should have heard of the legend of Six Paths Sannin saving the world, right? This matter is true. Six Paths Sannin saved the world from his mother's hands. Six Paths Sannin's mother came from an extremely terrifying force in the depths of the starry sky, the Otsutsuki family. This family has very few people, but each member has the strength to suppress a planet. Six Paths Sannin's mother is a low-level warrior of the Otsutsuki family, and the leader of the Shell Organization is a high-level warrior of the Otsutsuki family who brought her to our planet 1,000 years ago. This series of information made the three of them feel like their brains were about to crash. What Otsutsuki? What Shell Organization? Why does it sound so fake? Nagato asked in a dry voice, is what you said true? Of course it's true. Kakashi nodded. You can ask anyone after you go out and you will know. Bordered Soil took a deep breath. I understand the biggest threat the Alliance is facing now is the Shell Organization, right? Nagato asked, do they want to destroy the world again? Yahiko's eyes were solemn. You want us to contact Uncle Aizen after we go out and fight against the Shell Organization together? However, after the three of them were shocked, they found Kakashi and Lin looking at them with a smile. Bordered Soil didn't understand. Why are you looking at me like that? Kakashi laughed. I'm just lamenting that you have been out of touch with the world for too long. The Shell Organization is indeed powerful, but among the three forces of the Alliance, Shell Organization and Shell Organization, they are actually the weakest. Lin nodded. If it weren't for the Shell Organization's leader wanting to keep them alive, they would have been sealed by now. The three of them were shocked again. What kind of development is this? Bordered Soil couldn't understand. Didn't you say that Otsutsuki is a powerful force from the depths of the starry sky, and that he can suppress a planet by himself? Yes. Lin nodded, but Senpai and Aizen can easily do this kind of thing. The three of them looked at Garashi in disbelief, unable to connect this handsome and gentle man in front of them with the god who suppressed a planet. Yahiko was in a trance. Could it be that hundreds of years have passed in the outside world? Of course not, it's just that 8 years have passed. Kakashi said, his confidence waning. Senpai has the power to manipulate time, perhaps he has secretly accelerated it? Seeing Kakashi looking at him, Garashi naturally understood what he was thinking, shook his head and said, "Using time acceleration to fight is fine, but using it for cultivation? You think too highly of me." Time acceleration? Yahiko was dumbfounded. Not only time acceleration but also time rewind. Lin recalled with lingering fear, 3 years ago, a guy named Otsutsuki attacked the Alliance and killed many of us. In the end, it was Senpai who used time rewind to resurrect everyone. Hearing this, the three of them were completely stunned. Suppressing a planet, manipulating time, this is the domain of the gods, right? Just as the three of them were in a daze, an old man suddenly appeared in front of them with a dignified expression. "Leader, the moon has suddenly disappeared, and the outside world is now in chaos." Garashi pondered for a moment. "The moon has disappeared? Immortal, please calm everyone down first, I will come later." Okay. After Rikudo left, the 5 of them looked over in shock. Yahiko stammered, What did you call him? And what did he call you?" Chapter 610. Garashi said without hesitation, "Six Paths Sanin, what's the problem?" Nagato asked with a little dizziness, "Then why did he call you leader?" Garashi said calmly, "Sanin also joined the alliance, is it strange for him to call me leader?" "Of course it's strange." Everyone shouted in their hearts. "That's Six Paths Sanin, the legendary hero who saved the world and created ninja sect. It's already very shocking for such a character to come from legend to reality, not to mention that he also regarded himself as Garashi's subordinate. This kind of impact is simply explosive." Even Kakashi asked dizzily, "Six Paths Sanin joined the alliance? When did this happen?" Garashi laughed, "Just before I came to find you." Rin was the first to react and said excitedly, "With Six Paths Sanin joining, our chances of winning are even greater." Nagato gently stroked the Rinnegan that once shocked the ninja world with the name of Six Paths Sanin, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. "You are already so strong, even Six Paths Sanin is your subordinate, what else do you need our help with? Don't belittle yourself. Although you can't be regarded as the strongest in the ninja world, you are not bad." Garashi comforted, "Besides, what I need is your experience." "Experience?" Yahiko was a little surprised, but he quickly reacted, "The young people in the alliance? But you actually want us dangerous people to guide the young ninja. Aren't you afraid that we will instill dangerous ideas in them?" Garashi laughed, "What they lack is experience, but they don't lack faith." Bordered Soil nodded with deep emotion. "Those who follow Senpai will not lack faith." Bordered Soil's heart was filled with emotion. If it weren't for the accident midway, he might have become Senpai's most loyal fan. Of course, except for the conflict with Rin. Yahiko nodded, "Well, we agree. When will we meet the newcomer you said?" Seeing Yahiko agreed so readily, Garashi was a little embarrassed. "This mission, I intend to let Nagato and Bordered Soil guide. As for Yahiko, well, you can do some ordinary work." "Ordinary work?" Yahiko seemed to be humiliated. I am the leader of the Akatsuki." "But your strength?" Yahiko stared at him. "Didn't you say that strength is not important? What's important is our experience." Garashi said strength is not important, but the premise is you have the ability to protect yourself. Yahiko's facial muscles twitched wildly. "Don't I even have the ability to protect myself?" Garashi sighed, "Indeed. To be fair, Yahiko's strength is definitely not bad, but this mission is a cheat. Bordered Soil has space ability, Nagato has Rinnegan, not to mention the others, whether it is the strengthened Naruto, Sasuke or Momoshiki Tonari, they are not something ordinary Kage level can deal with. The era of ordinary Kage level is the ceiling of the ninja world, it has long passed." Yahiko looked like he was hit, and waved his hand dispiritedly. "I understand, ordinary people like me can only do ordinary work." Garashi unlocked the seal on the 3. "Let's go, I still have things to deal with in the outside world." After saying that, Shushi teleported everyone out. At this moment the outside world was still in panic. Although the moon is not as important as the sun, the sudden disappearance caused a huge chain reaction. What's going on? Where is the moon? Is it the end of the world? Hearing the voice in their ears, Bordered Soil and the other 2 felt like they were in another world. The 6 people appeared in front of the central building, and naturally they were quickly noticed by others. A group of high-level officials who were in charge of the pacification work gathered around and reported. "Leader, the astronomy department lost all observation of the moon." "Leader, there is someone who claims to be Rikudo Sanin." "Leader, the dream world is shaking chaotically, suspected of being attacked by unknown forces." Shushi raised his hands and gestured for everyone to calm down. Calm down, everyone. It'll be over soon. Hearing Garashi say this, everyone seemed to have found their backbone and suddenly relaxed. At this time they noticed a few more people behind Garashi. Ah, it's them? Although everyone was surprised, no one asked questions. Since the leader did this, he must have his reasons. Therefore they quickly focused their attention on Garashi. Seeing this, Yahiko, who was thinking of a way to greet them, was surprised again. They don't have any doubts about the three of us being released from prison. Is Garashi's prestige so high in their hearts? At this time, a voice came from the side. Leader, do you need me to create a new moon? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Who was this unreliable? Did you create the moon? However, Garashi asked, creating a new moon, will it be a big burden on you, immortal? Immortal? Everyone looked at the person and their mouths were wide open. Wasn't this the old man who called himself Rikudo Sanin? Was he really Rikudo Sanin? Rikudo Sanin thought seriously for a moment. Although the moon is just a subsidiary product that I used to seal my mother, I am not the same as before. Creating a new moon will take a lot of effort. Garashi shook his head slightly. Then there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will just go to space and move a smaller satellite. After that, Garashi teleported into space. The three who had just been released from prison were dumbfounded. Was this how the big bosses communicated? If he didn't create a new moon, he would move it. This was too cruel. No wonder he didn't even put a seal on us. Yahiko smiled bitterly. At first, he thought that after Shushi had unsealed them, he hadn't even left behind a small seal to prevent them from rioting. He had forgotten to do so in a hurry. But now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. At this time, Minato looked at the sky with some confusion. Didn't Momoshiki say that Aizen placed a barrier in the sky to prevent people from flying too far away? Rikudo Sanin shook his head slightly. I don't feel any barrier. AI's expression changed. Did something happen to Hollow? Or did Hollow and Shell cooperate? Minato pondered. Momoshiki said that the core of Aizen's barrier was the moon. Now that the moon has disappeared, it makes sense that the barrier is ineffective. I just don't know if Otsutsuki's two will take advantage of this opportunity to escape. A trace of worry appeared on Rikudo's face. He wasn't worried about whether Otsutsuki's group would escape or not. The universe was vast and boundless. Even Otsutsuki's travel time was measured in years. By the time Otsutsuki returned with reinforcements, the dust would have settled. What he was worried about was his mother, who was sealed on the moon. Chapter 6:11. Just as everyone was talking, a bright moon reappeared in the sky. Compared with appeasement and explanation, the moon's reappearance was undoubtedly more calming. When the moon reappeared, the panic in people's hearts quickly dissipated. A group of high-level officials had to sigh. Although this method was simple and crude, it was indeed effective. Unfortunately, they couldn't learn it. The next moment, Garashi reappeared in front of everyone. Minato hurriedly reported the discussion just now. Garashi murmured, the enchantment in the sky did fail with the disappearance of the moon. However, we don't know whether it's the Hollow or the Hollow Shell organization. But it doesn't matter, as long as you do your job well, it's okay. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone was no longer worried. In addition to Garashi's own prestige, the news of Rikudo Sanin joining was also an important reason. How could the combination of the leader and Rikudo lose? After the crowd dispersed, Garashi summoned Nagato, Naruto, and Rikudo Sanin to the room. The two sides looked at each other and perceived the chakra in their bodies. Nagato was surprised. The amount of chakra they have is almost no less than mine, especially the yellow-haired boy, he's even stronger than me. Naruto asked curiously. Sensei, are they the assistants you chose for us? Yahiko stood up expressionlessly. I'm just an ordinary person doing ordinary work, these two are your assistants. Sasuke asked. What about the other one? Niji wailed in his heart. Was he forgotten again? Don't worry, there's another one here. Shushi tapped lightly in the void and space rippled. A ghost with explosive hair appeared in front of everyone. Didn't I say don't bother me? Madara shouted irritably, and his eyes suddenly focused on Rikudo. You are... Garashi took the initiative to introduce. This is Rikudo Sanin, the source of Senju and Uchiha's bloodline. Rikudo Sanin. Madara's pupils shrank violently for a moment, but he quickly recovered his calmness. Just so. Tell me, what do you want from me? Garashi said, I want you to be my disciple's training guide. Madara's face was not good. You want me to be a nanny for these kids? As a nanny? You're not wrong. Garashi chuckled. However, your main task is to guide them. When it comes to fighting, you may not be a match for my disciples. Banban's face was frosty. The three of them were the last three people in the boring exam 3 years ago, right? Although you have some strength, how can you compare to me? Nagato sighed. We are all people who have been eliminated by the times. It's good enough that they still remember us. What's the era? Madara said disdainfully. Decades after the death of Hashirama and I, it's still our era. Bordered Soil still hated the fact that Madara deceived him. He sneered with the knowledge he just learned. Do you know what a shell organization of Hollow is? Do you know what Otsutsuki is? Madara frowned. Do I need to know this? Then let me tell you. Bordered Soil proudly showed off the knowledge that just shocked him. Soon Madara joined the ranks of the stunned. What? I may not even be in the top 10 of the ninja world? What? Chakra was brought by Otsutsuki? What? Otsutsuki is the god of creation, but ordinary Otsutsuki can only be a subordinate of the two major forces. There are two Otsutsuki. Shell is the weakest organization? If it weren't for the sage of the six paths himself, Madara would have thought that these people united to deceive him. In just 8 years, how did the world become so strange? 8 years ago, he was the one who forced the ninja world to unite against his final boss. However, if he were to do this again 8 years later, there would be no need for Qingshui Shushi to make a move. Any force would be able to beat him to the ground. The psychological gap is too big. Fortunately, after all, Madara is not an ordinary person. He quickly calmed down and asked, "Is it possible to see those people in this mission?" Garashi nodded slightly. "Yes." "Well, I'll take this mission." Madara's eyes were fierce. "I'd like to see how powerful the strong people of this era are," Garashi said. "Sasuke and Madara are in one group, Naruto and Nagato are in the other group, and Niji Bordered Soil is in the other group. Do you have any objections?" "No." "Well, get ready to go after stimulating your potential." At the same time, in the City of the Sky, Aizen looked at the two people in front of him with a smile. "You dare to appear in front of me after stealing the moon? Do you think I dare not kill you?" Tonari and the rest of the 10 blades stood aside with cold faces, ready to fight at any time. Ichibi calmly put his finger on his right eye. "I shrank the moon and sucked it into this eye." Everyone was shocked. They knew that Ichibi had the ability to shrink and enlarge, but they didn't expect that his ability was so powerful that he could put the moon in his eye. "If I'm scared by you and accidentally crush the moon and release Otsutsuki Kagaya, it won't be good for anyone," Aizen said. "I didn't expect that the powerful Otsutsuki would fall to the point of using a low-level warrior to threaten others," Ichibi said indifferently. "Although it's embarrassing, I don't deny the fact that she's stronger than me now." Aizen tapped his fingertips on the table. "Tell me, what do you want?" Momoshiki rushed to answer. "We want an army." "An army?" Aizen raised his eyebrows. "You want me to give you a part of the White Zetsu army?" "Of course we won't rob you," Ichibi answered with a smile. "We want the souls of the underworld." "The underworld?" Aizen laughed. "So, you want the Six Paths Sennin?" Ichibi said calmly. "The underworld is one of the 3 ultimate lands you mentioned, and it can provide us with an army. Of course it's the best choice." Aizen closed his eyes and didn't speak. Momoshiki said anxiously, "You don't need to deal with the 6 paths. You just need to help us block the possible appearance of Shimizu Garashi." Ichibi added, "Whether Shimizu Garashi appears or not, I will return the Grand Tensigen to you." Aizen didn't deny it. He smiled and said, "Otsutsuki's power resides in the Grand Tensigen. I thought you would swallow him." The corners of their mouths twitched. If Naruto's chakra and Rasengan was food mixed with feces, then Otsutsuki in the Grand Tensigen was food mixed with feces. They wouldn't swallow Otsutsuki if they didn't want to live. Seeing their dark faces, Aizen didn't want to waste more time on them and said lazily, "Okay, I agree." You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.